Okay, welcome to the July 29th council work session. Open for visitors' comments.
Mayor, can we scroll down to see what's down all the way to Kathy?
I don't see anything probably pertaining to you.
Okay, I just have some comments.
You want to step up to the podium and state your name?
We want to go ahead. My name is Randy Whitehouse, 365, excuse me, 310 Riverside Drive in Helens. About 3 months ago, I purchased a permit from the city of St. Helens for a project, 131 North First Street in St. Helens. Part of the conditions of approval of my permit were to construct some street improvements and some off-site improvements that were required by the planning commission or by the planning director, David Carter. And specifically what it was a bike path that was off-site, and it was done at a approved lot plan. And I wrote a check to the tune of about over $40,000 for this permit. And so far, I've spent about just shy of $10,000 retaining walls and gravel to accommodate this and to upgrade it. Approximately a month ago, I received a large email from Diane Diller, the neighbor, Steve Block, the commissioner, and it has gone from the point of, at the present time, Steve Block and Diane Diller have requested that the bike path not be constructed. And I'm happy with that. I spent a lot of money on the project, and whatever the neighbors want is fine with me, but this was approved because. What did you do?
You turn your mic on.
Oh, you're recording it. Oh, so this was approved because it was in a transportation plan that was adopted about 3 years ago, and so Jacob Greichen merely followed the rules that the city of St. Helens had before him to accommodate this. Now, because of some citizen input, a couple of people are not interested in it. Some are, but I'm not a proponent of the bike path or against it. It really doesn't make any difference to me. It was just a condition of approval for my building permit. So, at the direction of Keith Locke, as I understand, both Jacob Greichen and Sue Nelson and I worked through a cost analysis of what the bike path would cost to complete. I gave my figures to Sue. Sue's checked with Neil Shepard, Superintendent of Public Works, and they've come up with some numbers, and I reviewed them. And when I got the email from Jacob about a week ago, I looked at them, and I was concerned because they're higher than what I thought they should be. Namely, for the most part, a 25% surcharge because I am not completing that required public improvement. Well, let me say this, that I'm willing to do what I needed to do because that's what my permit said I needed to do. And I just don't feel that it's correct for me to be paying more than what my cost analysis that we can agree with Sue would entail. So I looked at that, and Sue says, well, Wayne, I have no real control over it. This is what the ordinances call for. And I said, well, because it's on a very extenuating circumstances with Keith Locke proposing not to have the bike path for safety reasons, I don't think that I should be required to pay the 25% surcharge. And I told her at that point that I was going to call Keith Locke to discuss it with him. I called Keith Locke in the morning of about, I think it was last Thursday, and he was at Boise Cascade. I was meeting Neil Shepard on site at 2:30 that day and asked Keith if he could show up after I had my visit with Neil Shepard about the placement of the property. So that's kind of a backlog on it. I was in conference with Neil Shepard, and Keith Locke showed up on site. And I'm going to tell you what was said. I'm going to tell you exactly what was said. And I'm hoping that there are no reprisals for me. I don't want confrontation. I just want to complete my project. And I just feel that I was deeply hurt by what happened. We were in conversation with Neil Shepard. Keith Locke showed up with his 2 dogs, walked up and interrupted the conversation before we were quite finished with it, which was fine. We all do that. Keith told me that he was very, as I understand it, he was very hurt, or no, not hurt. He was thinking that it was very small potatoes for me to be complaining about the cost of what it was. He said if it was up to him, he would charge me a 200% fee. He said that he instructed Sue Nelson to wipe off $480 of the bill for grading, but he just said that that should be good enough for you. Before he said all of these things, he said that he could slice me up and feed them to his dogs. That one hurt. I don't think it's professional for a city councilman to do that. I think I am deserving of a letter of apology, and I just want to go through my building project without that kind of confrontation from the public sector.
Wayne, that isn't exactly what I said, but it was close. But
Keith, can you turn on your mic, please?
I thought I was smiling and laughing at the time and joking with you at the time.
You would never make a comedian. Never. Go ahead.
Okay, so anyway, I thought I was joking with you at the time, and then we sat down and we had a discussion and we talked about how I really felt about it, right?
Somewhat. You told me what you.
That you had done some grading, and that's why I figured that the discount should be applied to you because of the grading you had already done.
Kind of. So, I just want to say that I think that it was extremely unprofessional. It was unprovoked. It was confrontational. The leadership qualities that were directed to me by a commissioner are almost unforgivable to me. It concerns me how much effort you put forth for this city that I've lived in for 75 years, longer than probably any of you, and how you can be the negotiator of deals for the city with that kind of confrontation, if it in fact happens, doesn't seem like it really represents what the whole city is all about, Keith.
If I was confrontational, Wayne, I will apologize right now in front of TV. I'm deeply sorry. I did not mean it to come across that way, so I apologize for that.
All right, I accept that. I'm real concerned about the vetting process that Keith is allegedly ahead of down at the marijuana grow in city of St. Helens. I don't know who vetted who down there. I don't know what the LLC's value is, if it's the $10 bill to file an LLC, or if the people that are backing it are worth millions of dollars. But I certainly hope that the council has hired a good land use attorney and real estate attorney to make sure your interests are protected. I don't care if the thing goes in or doesn't go in, it makes no difference to me. But when you're talking a 50-year lease, that's almost unheard of in the real estate industry. The only 100-year lease I've ever seen is with PGE in the city of, and the Port of St. Helens, and that is a long, long lease. I haven't read the lease, I don't know what it says, but I just hope that you're on solid ground with it.
The lease was written by a lawyer.
Well, that's great.
Wayne, I would like to apologize too for that happening to you, and that we will look into what's going on more with Sue and Neil, and get back to you on that. Okay.
That's great, and there are some other instances that I'm not going to bring up now, but I was really upset with what happened. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Other visitor comments. Did you have something, Doug?
Good afternoon. I'm Ashley Baggett, 59877 Ethan Lane, here as a resident. I'm here to say a few words on expressing my support for the sugar sweetened beverage tax. As you know, I've had the opportunity to participate in a number of assessments that really pertain to the public's health, not only of the county, but of City of St. Helens as well. And I think it's really important. Not only am I a resident, but I'm also a wife and a mother of 2 kids under the age of 3. And so we often get out into the community. We're regularly going to the parks. I'm regularly running. I've had the opportunity to be off this last week. And so I've gotten out a lot with a double stroller and running. And so in my knowledge of what the sugar sweetened beverage tax would support would be infrastructure for parks as well as sidewalks, which is hugely needed for our community. I know when I get out there, I have very limited options in terms of where I can take the kiddos with a double stroller. There's a lot of goat trails in between residential areas, and so really finding creative revenue streams to support connecting those goat trails so that we have safe walking routes, safe running routes for families and kids to get to our local parks. I know my husband and my kids often go to the parks frequently, and we have seen a deteriorate, and I've worked for the Parks Department years ago, and over the years it's really deteriorated, and it's a shame because I see on a regular basis how many of our community residents utilize our parks, and it's really disheartening when we don't have the funds to really support the infrastructure to keep them safe and to keep our kids active. I also know that through the work that I've done is that chronic disease is one of the most prevalent and costly diseases of our community, and so being able to combat chronic disease through a city level by providing infrastructure for safe environments for families to actively get out and play, I think it's in our community's best interest. Also, I know in terms of being a very viable community, it's one of the things that people look to when they want to move to a community. Is it walkable? Is it safe? Are there parks to take my kids at? And so in terms of finding creative strategies and moving forward, I think this is a really great idea and something that the city should consider supporting.
Did you sign in with your email?
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Yep. I didn't know. I have kiddos napping right now, so I wanted to make sure I provided my testimony at the beginning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ryan Laird, 1120 Deer Island Road here in St. Helens. I'm not sure if this would fit best at the beginning here or if it would fit better in one of the financial report sections, but I had some questions regarding the water department reports that are sent out on an annual basis. Would somebody be able to direct me to who would be able to?
That would be Matt Brown.
Matt Brown?
Yeah.
Are you talking the water quality report?
Yeah, the ones that are sent out annually.
That would be
That would
Sue
be Public
Nelson or
Works.
Neil.
Does the details?
Depends on what the question is. I guess if it's a financial question, Matt would probably be more the one. If it's to do with the water quality part of it,
It would be more of a Matt deal. It's about how our milling process is. It could potentially save us thousands of dollars, Matt. What Ryan's got.
Our milling process?
Mailing.
Oh,
Mailing.
mailing process. I'm happy to meet with them outside. Other than that, we use a third-party company to do our bills, and that was a contract that or RFP that was done. I want to say a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it was just renewed for a year this past December or January, I believe. But we use a third-party company called Metro Presort.
Okay. Are those documents for the postage statements that are submitted coming out of the St. Helens permit, the St. Helens post office, is that public information or is that kept private?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. The artwork that I've seen for these particular mailers, they go at first class mail rates, and I was curious what the decision process was in regards to sending that out at full rate first class mail.
I was not around during the RFP process when Metro Presort was happening. I can definitely review their RFP and see what specifically, if there was a difference in cost between first class and not, along with the other companies that presented in the RFP. I'd be happy to look at that and let you know.
Yeah, that'd be great. Because I've gone back as far as I think it was 2003 on the artwork that's provided on the city website, and they're all at full rate first class, which means that anybody receiving this it would have been this year at 49 cents a piece.
Yeah.
And we could potentially mail these out for 21.7. So it's a huge difference in cost.
I'd be happy to look at. Did you sign in with your email address? And okay, if I get your email address from there, I can let you know, and maybe we can meet.
Great.
Meet in no
Okay.
time.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ryan.
Can I ask a question, Matt?
Yeah.
Is there a difference in the timeliness of delivery between first class and?
That would be my assumption, but I do not know 100%.
Because that could be the reason, if that were the case, so that people receive them in a timely manner. But, sure.
Step back up here. Yeah.
These particular mailers are prepared with paper labels. So I don't know what database is used to create these Avery labels, but when these are created on a sheet, they take lots of hours to apply by hand. And as far as the delivery goes,
Yeah, the delivery was the only question that I had.
yeah, the delivery, the post office will not guarantee
Right.
delivery within a certain time frame. It's common knowledge that anything that prepared at full rate first class gets delivered anywhere in the contiguous United States within 3 days. But I've repeatedly seen that not happen. The process that we go through, we send our list, all of our mailing lists through a move update process, which verifies the accuracy of these addresses. Or we could add a liner on here that says or current resident, which would mean that the mail gets delivered regardless of the name on the piece. So if that's the concern,
So you do mailings and you're looking at responding to an RFP then,
yes.
next
mhm.
time?
Yep, and I've attempted to contact the water department, and they referred me to the city shop in the past. I never heard back, and I attempted on 4 different occasions.
Maybe
So
they
that's why
misunderstood the question.
What's that?
Maybe they misunderstood the question.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to speak with somebody about the details whenever you can find the time, because it's a huge savings.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Ryan, I'll shoot you an email after the meeting today and set up a time we can talk.
Okay, other visitor comments? Okay, let's review final report of cost of service analysis. Oh, nope, annual report from Parks Commission, I'm sorry. Yeah, come on up.
Okay, so for those of you that don't know me, I'm Elisa Mann, and I'm on the Parks Commission, and this is Howard Blumenthal, he's our Parks Commission president. We just wanted to go over a little bit of what's been going on in our parks this past year. We have a new bridge now at McCormick Park that connects the parking lot to the Frisbee golf course. We also have a new pavilion at McCormick Park, and they were both funded by grants, and Jenny Dimshow is absolutely amazing at getting us grants. When we talk about ideas, she'll say, oh, well, I'm sure there's a grant for that, and sure enough, she finds it and gets it, so that's been really great. We also, our parks are very busy. We've got additional projects that we'd like to do. We'd like to have a fenced dog park. We did get funding for that. We're also exploring options with creating new parks, and we're always looking for ways to help maintain our current parks. We're lucky we do have some volunteers maintaining the activity stations at McCormick Park. And we're always looking for input and feedback on ways we can keep doing that. So, and I'll let Howard take over.
Okay, and I can. We also wanted to thank the city for, once again, Jennifer, getting us a great grant for a staircase that's hopefully. We also want to thank Jennifer for getting us a grant for Nob Hill Nature Park. Hopefully the city's going to build it here shortly. We're getting a new railroad tie staircase from the veneer plant property up above, and hopefully a kiosk here shortly. So we're all excited about that. It was very interesting. We took a field trip with the Parks Commission on Monday to look at a possibility of an RV park, and I'd never walked that area before, so I was very surprised to see the Boise Cascade area over there and see that there kind of was some of that already. And it's such a beautiful area in there. I hope that we can work something out to do something with that. It looked like it could possibly also be a great way to have a connector. We always talk about connections and trails going throughout the city, that would give us a huge section, because you could come through McCormick, you could go down through that whole area. All you'd have to do is find a way across the Boise Cascade pulp mill property. You could hit the new railroad right away that is talked about having that developed, and you could get all the way out here without having to really walk on any streets. So I'm really hoping we can work towards that and get some things going on that. We've also, there was a plan developed for the expansion of Columbia View Park that I think you guys kind of accepted. I guess that's now just up to finding some money to expand on that. So we're happy for all of that coming on. And I guess just kind of thanks to the City Council for their support in the city parks. We're always trying to make them better with public input and everything else. I guess too, one of the largest controversies that I actually kind of do like is the fact that not necessarily having garbage service out on the island and on Sand Island, and I was very surprised to hear that they're hauling hardly anything away from out there now without the cans. So I'm starting to think that maybe was a good idea too. You know, it saved a lot of money. I've heard that sometimes some weekends they could generate as much as 3 barges worth of garbage that would come off the island, and to hear that they barely had 1 can for the same time period, to me is something real remarkable. We're not in the garbage business in this city, and anytime people can pack something home and give us less to have to spend money on garbage is always great. You guys have any questions for us? I think that's about it.
Howie, you know my background as a sports coach,
Yeah.
and I'm so pretty much team-oriented. Can you elaborate a bit on the teaming of what's happened with the parks and the bicycle and pedestrian committee in terms of a team approach, a joint approach in a project?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, we've been talking a little bit with another, I'm going to forget his name, another gentleman on bicycle and pedestrian.
That's Ben.
Ben. I'm terrible with names. I'm sorry. I know faces. Name's Ben. And we had a kind of a joint meeting with them where we discussed the possibilities of furthering to have maybe more trails, and maybe have a master trail that would lead you through this greater St. Helens area and through the parks and connect up, and hopefully we can try to get that into the next time they update their big, beautiful bicycling and walking map that they have in the city. So I think that's something that's real good. Since I came from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, I think that we kind of overlap in some ways of, you know, for trails and stuff that you know, it's good to be.
Thanks for sharing that.
Okay. Is that it?
I just would like to, you know, thank you guys for all the hard work you do. We got a lot of parks, 12 parks, and looking to expand the water view and Boise property. And I do believe the water view down here will be approximately about 6 acres in total with the boardwalk.
Columbia View?
Yeah, Columbia View.
That's the conceptual plan.
Yeah, so fairly decent size, and I also want to put a plug out there for Citizens Day in the park, which is August 12th at McCormick Park, our biggest park, and it'll be a car show and DJ music and barbecue, and we hope to see you guys out there. Bring a side dish, and we'll have some fun out there.
And I thought of one more thing I'd like to say. Some of our parks have friends groups, so if anybody ever has a park that they're interested in doing and want to volunteer, get in touch with the Parks Commissioner or whatever, and we can help share, because some of our parks are a lot nicer if we have a few people that want to go through and pick up trash or weed occasionally. You know, but you need to talk to us first.
Yep.
Thank
you, Howie.
So, Howard, Just to let you guys know that, since we're talking about parks, is the Heine Human Dog Park will be open tomorrow. It's pretty much all finished except for a few signs, so
Nice.
we'll be opening that up.
And that's the dog park, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You missed one grant too. You missed the Veterans War Memorial grant that
Okay.
expands the plaza. So
Yep.
have to pile on. Have to pile on a little bit on Jenny there. So
Thank you again.
All right. Thank you, guys. Okay, now review final report of cost and service analysis. Steve Donovan.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Donovan. My office address is 9600 Southwest Oak, Suite 335, Portland, Oregon, 97223. Through a RFP, my firm was selected to do the cost of service analysis for water, sewer, and stormwater rates, and the update of the SDCs for water, sewer, parks, and stormwater. We did not update transportation because that was recently updated and reviewed. The team that we worked with is your staff over here and John. John was involved in it. You've got a report in your packets. I don't know, did you give them hard copies? And we're going to have a PowerPoint presentation for you here, so strap in. I'll try to be sympathetic to your schedule, but there's a lot of material to cover. And the mouse is not working. Okay. There we go.
it's all new.
This is new to us.
Okay, I'm done. I gotten out of here. There we go. Other than that, we're just fine.
We need a 5-year-old in here to show us how.
That's kind of what yeah.
So go the other arrow. Try the other way. There you go.
There we go.
Yep.
All right. So there's going to be quite a few slides. I'll try to be quick. If I say any gobbledygook in terms of TMDL or MS4 or NPDES, stop me and I'll explain what that means. We'll talk about the summary of rates and SDCs. We'll then loop into the detailed components of the rate side of the equation, water, sewer, and storm. Then we'll loop into the SDCs, system development charges, and these folks are so interested in parks and park funding. One of the critical elements of this study is getting some more parks funding involved. We'll come back for questions. We'll try to be brief. So, the good news. Our financial modeling indicates that we don't have to do any compelling rate increases on the rates over the forecast horizon for water and sewer, but we are facing some issues on stormwater. So that's the very good news. Over the 5-year forecast horizon, we have come up with a solution for the stormwater system where cash in the sewer fund will be used to fund all of the proposed stormwater capital improvements. And you might recall, prior to this fiscal year, stormwater and wastewater were all housed in the same financial bucket, the same fund. Mm-hmm. They have now since been broken out. Stormwater does not have the wherewithal on its own right now to fund the needed capital improvements, and there's some very critical stormwater capital improvements that have to be done. So we're suggesting and recommending to you that all of those requirements be funded with cash that you have on hand in the sewer fund to fund that. We also have some other issues that we really want to talk about, and this is the most important one, is you've got a revenue problem in the stormwater system. You currently have a fee exemption policy. Any property that drains directly to a creek or the river or a receiving body is exempt from stormwater fees. So in my judgment and in the judgment of the industry, those folks are getting a free ride in the sense that they get the benefit of having a clear and standing water-free transportation system where they can get around in without paying for it. So we want to talk about that in more detail as we get into the stormwater side. We do think it makes a lot of sense, and this is the trend in the industry, particularly since you folks have a fair amount of debt in your utilities, that you adjust your rates every year for inflation. based on what we use in the Engineering News Records Construction Cost Index versus the Consumer Price Index. We can talk some more about that. And the last thing is we suggest that you policy folks engage with Columbia City on water. The water agreement was written in 1982, and we had glaciers back then. It's time to update that contract, but furthermore, you haven't sold any water to those folks in, Neil, 3-4 years now? I think it was 2014 was the last water sales. They have 2 wells. One of their wells is not performing at all well, so they get it but their primary well is meeting their needs. I would think that there would be an opportunity here for you to connect with them to be a more baseload supplier of their water needs. And I've got the benefit of, I did their last water and sewer rate study, so I'm familiar with those folks. But I think a connection with Columbia City on water would be helpful because it would help you because you are blessed with a remarkable water supply. The people in Arizona would love to annex you. Your Ranny well is remarkable, and you're getting water, very high quality water, out of a almost limitless supply. So that's the good news. Uh-oh. Matt! Oh, that's where the smoke's coming.
Yeah. So you think $2.12 is a little low, 1982?
A little, well.
Yeah. Per 100.
Actually, we did take a look, and it's not the rate problem. I think it's the issue of you engaging with them to be a supplier for them.
Sure.
Because on a marginal cost basis, it's costing you very little to take water out of your system and to deliver it to them. So you could actually generate good revenues for your system and still supply them with a high quality product. To me, it seems like a good thing for you guys to be talking about. So on system development charges, obviously we suggest that you implement the SDCs that we're recommending today, and we are recommending them to go up. Establish a resolution that you, as a matter of policy, direct your staff to review SDCs every 5 years. This is kind of a belt and braces thing in the industry, best practices for League of Oregon Cities type folks. And then between the SDC review periods, we suggest you adjust those SDCs for inflation because you're allowed to do that under the statute, and it keeps your SDCs current because in some cases, the years haven't been adjusted for quite some time. Finally, there's 2 more things. I really strongly suggest you commission a new wastewater master plan. You do not have a hydraulic model of your sewer collection system, and you need one. I have seen over the years cases where you may have a capital improvement plan that says we need to build, for instance, the South Interceptor, we need to build that. A good hydraulic map of or model of your system could say perhaps we could divert flows from other sections of the system into existing pipes, and that might give you the opportunity to avoid building new pipes. You haven't had a master plan in 20 years, Sue? The other thing is you can use system development charge money in the fund balances in the SDC fund to pay for that. So that's the obvious next question you're going to have. How are you going to pay for that? SDCs can pay for it, and you have the cash. And that's also the case with the stormwater master plan. We definitely need to have better understanding of our drainage basins so that you can understand your capital improvement needs better. And that also can be paid for with SDC funds in the stormwater SDC fund. So let's talk about water rates. Key drivers in the water fund. This fiscal year, your most recently adopted budget, you're planning to spend $305,000 on meters, mains replacements, tank coating, and well maintenance. All of this will be financed with cash as we've played out and what your budget shows. We estimate that you're going to start the year with $2.8 million in the water fund. You're going to bake in about $3.35 million a year in water revenues. And so you're basically replenishing a little more of your fund balance every year. In terms of capital costs going over the 5-year period, we think you're going, where you've got in your 5-year plan, to spend $4.3 million. Our funding plan strategy is about $1 million of that will be paid for with system development charges for capacity expanding projects, and the balance would come from water system cash. And then forecast of operations and maintenance expenses and labor. We've got, I was a little aggressive, more than what Matt uses in his models. I went 5% on materials and services and 3% on, I'm sorry, 5%, yeah, on personal services, 3% on materials and services. So we put all this stuff into the machine, and we turn the crank, and we find out that over the 5-year forecast horizon, we won't have any hard costs that would compel us to raise rates. You're meeting coverage on your debt, and by the way, you've got about $4 million in water system debt outstanding, and those picky bondholders, they really, really like to get repaid, and they've got something called covenants in there. And you have to have an amount of cash in a reserve account equal to 1 year's debt service payment at all times, plus you have to make a promise called a rate pledge, a covenant, which says at all times the net revenues of the system, gross revenues coming in less operations and maintenance expense equals net revenues. That net revenue divided by that year's debt service must at all times be 120%. So what they're saying is you not only have to put money in the coffee can in the backyard to pay us, you also have more cash coming in than what you have to pay us as a cushion of liquidity. So that's another reason for thinking about inflation-based rate adjustments.
Who's saying? That's what they're saying. Who is there? Who are they?
That's what you promised in your contract with the bondholders.
Okay.
When you took out that debt, you signed just like everybody else. You took out a mortgage. You didn't pledge your house.
Right.
You pledged your revenues of the system. Otherwise, it's the same thing.
Thank you for clarifying that.
You bet. So, what do we look at, financial guys? And the real bottom line is this graph what we're looking at here. After we put all that stuff into the machine and we turn the crank, what is our ending fund balance in the water fund? And if you'll notice, it's slightly growing. You're building up a reserve, and in 2022, you take about $1.4 million out of the system. It drops down fast. What happened? Well, that's when the new reservoir tank is going to come on. Sue, that's on the west side? Yeah. And that will only happen as growth occurs. But that's the bit. That'll be $1.5 million, maybe $2 million. That's going to be a big project coming down the road, one of your biggest, as a matter of fact. And then what do we need in the water fund? We know what we got, but what should we have? And what we use as a guide in the industry is 90 days worth of operating expenses as a emergency reserve. And that's what you're coming in. So you need about $500,000 at all times for a reserve requirement. So you're covering that. So on balance, we feel good about the water forecast. Let's talk about neighboring communities and what the water bills are, which is the really things that you're interested in. And though this is just water, and you look at all these neighboring communities, and for 1,000 cubic feet of water, which is 10 units on your water bill, 10 CCF, you pay about $62.62. You're not the highest, you're certainly not the lowest, but you're in that park, that ballpark. And by the end of this presentation, we're going to stack water and sewer and storm together to say, what's my total darn bill? And we'll compare that too. So wastewater. This year you're going to spend $490,000 on capital improvements in your budget. Lift station number 1 is probably the biggest one. It's not clear that the south trunk upgrade is going to have anything done on it other than planning. Sue, fair engineering or planning? Okay. Estimated fund balance as of July 1 is $4.3 million, which is good. But keep in mind, this is the big brother of the stormwater fund. This is the go-to guy. Estimated revenues about $4.2 million in rate revenues this year. Over the 5-year forecast, only $965,000 is planned to be spent on the wastewater system. And I push back on these guys on that because in my experience, wastewater, you're spending millions every year. But they confirmed it. You have a tremendous amount of capacity in your treatment system because your industrial load is not here anymore, but that capacity is still there. So the demand for capital improvements is in your collection system, and that's another reason for us to get a hydraulic map of your system and a master plan so we can understand it better. This is the plan. What we're talking about here is $1.9 million coming out of the wastewater fund to fund the stormwater fund. So there's your big brother. So we've accounted for that, and then inflation on labor and materials. So here's the same picture that we talked about on water we'll have with wastewater. And you can see we keep a pretty steady hand at the tiller here. We keep about $4.5 million, 4-point-something million in the fund. We're also able to fund those stormwater capital improvements, and we're also able to fund those very modest wastewater system. If those wastewater costs were quite a bit higher, this green line would be coming down. And in terms of the reserve required for 90 days, we need about $1 million, 800,000, 900,000. So you make that again. So this is a good report. This is a good thing to tell. Usually I come in and tell you, you got to raise rates because you're in trouble, but you're not. So here's wastewater. And in this case, you're kind of right there with most of the lower cost providers. You look at Vernonia. That's a terrible situation in Vernonia. They had to basically replace their wastewater treatment plant twice.
The flood.
The 96 flood and then a corresponding flood in 2004, I think it was, 5 something. So that's why they've got such a large rate. Stormwater. Now this is the one that we really want to get some input and some guidance from you folks, and perhaps I might even take a straw poll here today on this issue. You've got a very high amount of capital improvements planned for this year. It's not clear to me that you're going to get it all done. The biggest and most important ones, Columbia Boulevard and South 10th Street, those have definite drainage needs, and come here in February and you know why you need them. You got to start the year with about $1 million. Now remember, this is the first year of the Stormwater Fund on its own. So I commend you for doing that for transparency purposes. It's always good to have these things stand alone. Your auditors probably are happy with you too. But because you've got such a high level of capital improvements going on or budgeted this year, we think you're going to end the year, if you do all your work, with only about $200,000 in the Stormwater Fund, and that's not enough. You bring in about $865,000 a year in rate revenue, and this is, again, the same situation. $1.98 million in capital improvements. 77,000 of that over the 5 years will be coming from SDCs. The balance will be coming from the sewer fund. This is where we really want to talk about this exemption policy, and it's not sure that it was ever a thought-out policy or just sort of a grandfathered policy, but I asked Matt to do an analysis for me, and he came up that there's about 316 accounts that currently have water and sewer bills, but no stormwater. These aren't all single-family residential. As a matter of fact, Walmart is one of those accounts. So Walmart's paying no stormwater fees, yet they are using your street network to have their customers come and go to their facility. We don't think that's necessarily a good idea. And I want to talk, can we talk about that? What do you guys think about this?
I think it's a good idea to talk about it at this point. We'd really like to, as long as you're here, like you to facilitate that if we could.
Okay. What we have done in terms of the modeling is we have said your policy will continue. And what will that tell? What will happen? What will that mean for the stormwater fund, for everybody else that's not being exempted? And we'll show you that in a second, what that means. And it's not a bad story, but it's still, you're charging $10.98 per single-family household a month for stormwater. That's one of the higher fees in the region. Your fees are high. So it's awful hard for me to look and say, you've got to pay, Keith, $10.98, but John, you don't have to because where your house is happens to drain to a creek.
Yeah.
So thanks.
So the 316, are they in weird spots like that, near creeks, on bluffs, on riverbanks, on where there's not
Sue?
going to be ever a storm anyhow?
Or Milton Creek. Okay.
And will a storm ever reach those people? More than likely, how many, though, realistically? I mean, down on Gray Cliff, are you guys going to punch storm down that way and pump it back up?
So what?
No, but that's not his point.
That's not the. Yeah, that's not
No,
the.
I understand the Walmart. The Walmart is the traveling of all them cars in and out, 24 hours.
Well,
a
it's
day.
even
Also their
Oil.
parking lot.
oils dripping on the roadways.
Well, they have in their system as a condition of development, they've got a vault underneath their parking lot, and they do have oil water separators, and they do detain on site, and we would give them a credit for their on-site detention. There's no question about that. What they do detain, they would, but it's still just a fundamental question of fairness. Should, as a matter of policy of this body, Keith pay, John don't pay? When everybody's in the boat, everybody has access to the street network, everybody pays to have clear right-of-way.
Sure.
So that's the question.
Are these exemptions primarily residential or commercial, and what's the balance?
That's the problem, and I didn't take it deeper, but we want to take it deeper, but we wanted to get a go, no-go from you guys. How many of these are residential? We did a what-if analysis and said, what if these were all single-family, how much money would it take in? And we would take in a couple, it's in the report, I forgot the number. Do you remember what it was? $40,000, $50,000 a year? Something like that, if they were all single-family, but we know they're not.
So, Steve, on our rates, how high did you say we were on storm?
I'll show you a graph in a minute, but you're $10.98 for.
And so what's the
family.
difference between John and Keith if Keith owns Walmart and John has a little Cape Cod on McNulty Creek?
A big difference, yeah. Because we charge stormwater based on impervious surface. Every unit of 2,500 square feet of impervious surface is an EDU, an equivalent dwelling unit.
Yeah.
So if Keith is 1 EDU, he's paying $10.98. If John has 15 EDUs, he's paying, $150, and he's being exempted $150. So that's what I'd like to get a straw poll from you folks is to direct staff, like they got nothing else to do, right?
Yeah.
Is to answer that very question. Of those 316 accounts, what is the composition? Because that's an important question.
I'd like to
And then we can tell you the revenue impact of that. And then the next question is, if you decide to do that, there's two forks that you can follow. One, do we recalculate the rate and bring the rate down for everybody per equivalent dwelling unit? Or do we keep the rate flat and start building up the reserves of this stormwater utility, which is in desperate need of reserves? That's a question for another day. But what I'd like to get from you folks is a thumbs up to direct staff to answer that 316 question.
So moved. For me.
Yes.
take a motion?
No.
No,
Consensus?
Just that we're asking
No.
for consensus. This is a work
Yeah.
session.
I
And
agree.
I mean, I'm pushing this back to John. Is there anything in your mind that we're walking in the swamp here, as it were, for any reason?
I think we're very capable of doing that exercise, yeah.
Okay.
So, on the other hand, going back to water, didn't you say we have a very large contingency for water?
Both water and wastewater, yeah.
So I think we need to do the opposite for that as the study also.
Oh, you lost me.
Well, I mean, if we have way too much, I mean.
Well, you don't have way too much.
No,
You-
he's saying we have the ability in the clean water, our volume is sufficient, I think. Is
No, I'm talking about the excess money we have sitting in the bank.
That is not excess. Trust me. That you have capital needs coming down the road. I mean, a body like you is not judged by what you do today. It's what happens 10 years from now.
Well, I understand that, but
And-
you were looking down the road
Yeah.
at our fees also.
And we're looking down, and I think that what I'm saying is we don't have to do drastic rate increases to get you out of trouble.
Well, okay.
Would be nice.
So, yeah, so we've talked about that, but we've still got feedback that, no, we have to raise them.
And-
So, yeah.
Keith, let me walk through this,
Yeah.
get you to the end. We'll get to the end, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about that.
So you got a head nod for checking into the 316.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think it'll be important and enlightening to you. Okay, so here's what we're looking at for stormwater. Very fairly low fund balances and critical reserve requirements. Your reserves are almost butting up about the amount of cash you've got. This is not a good picture. Your reserve requirements are not growing as fast as your operating reserve required. And so here's what we're looking at in terms of the rate profile for stormwater if you choose not to change anything. Just continue doing what you're doing. We can go along till 2020, but then inflation starts to eat our lunch. Even with all of that capital support from the sewer side, we start looking at bumping it up to almost $12 by the end of the 5-year forecast. So that's another compelling reason to talk about this exemption policy.
Have you factored in with this the projects that are now underway, and they look like they're going to be finished in a couple years or
Yes.
whatever? I mean,
Yes.
is that factored in with
That's
this?
all factored in. Yeah, yeah, and no new debt. Now that's another reason that, I mean, we could push this down if you wanted to take on debt, but I don't think there's any compelling reason to do that. So this is the profile that we're looking at for the status quo. Once staff gets back to you on these 316, we'll take a look at that again and see what we can do for you if you choose to change. And you guys see the picture here. I mean, it's pretty obvious what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, neighboring community stormwater rates. Vernonia, Columbia City, and Rainier, they don't even charge a stormwater fee. You're at $10.98. Portland is at $17.84, but they've got what's called a combined system. So, and they spent $1 billion unbundling that combined sewer overflows that you remember. So that's why they've got a very large component there of stormwater. But yours is up there.
Yeah. And that really makes me nervous too. I mean, so you're saying that we're projected not to be good, and we are, I hate to say this, but realistically we are third highest in water on your charts. We are third highest in sewer other than Vernonia, but I excuse them because of the floods. But that would put us number 3, not number 4. And we are third on storm.
Yep.
And it disturbs me that we don't have a big pipe project and that we are forecasted to be, so we definitely need to look at those 316 at least.
Right. And here's what you just brought up. Here's water. Remember we saw water? Now here's add-on to sewer because it's cumulative. You know, you pay the whole boat. You don't pay just pick and choose what you pay on your bill. What you got here in the green is a transportation street maintenance fee. And I think in the next 5 years, your community is going to be facing this issue. Every community in Oregon is. Gasoline taxes are not paying enough to keep your streets maintained. Many communities are now heading toward a transportation or a street user fee. And it's not popular. It's absolutely not popular. But like with parks, where else can you go? The sugary beverage tax. I heard a lady say a creative funding mechanism. This is the creative funding mechanism of choice for transportation. And coming down the road, excuse the pun, your way. And then here's the stormwater. So you're right, Mayor. You guys are now, when you put them all together, you're the 4th highest in our batch here at $121. But
Steve?
There's another.
The transportation thing added to the others, do you? Did you say everybody was going to be in that boat?
well, Hillsboro's the only one in this group that has a fee right now.
Well, and you have to excuse Vernonia. That's a natural act of God.
Exception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're an exception.
Yeah, they're sewer, and with the way they pay their sewer bill is they have a sewer bill and then they have a debt surcharge because they took on all debt to pay for those improvements. So yeah, I'll buy that.
Well, just recently, we updated our INI. We're on solid basalt. Solid basalt this town is built on. I think there is an excuse for that in many ways, and for the costs to replace those trunk lines that were 100 years old.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, there's another emergency. I mean, because we were mandated to do that. So I mean, there's a lot of costs initiated with our system and what we've been doing. And I
would agree.
I think what you folks have, and Sue was real helpful yesterday. We were on the phone, and she sent me the history of your rate increases, and I know what happened here, why you're at $121. Your original system, built in the 60s and 70s, was organized as a mill town. And the industrial base that was here subsidized the residential base.
Yes.
And that was a very good way of doing things. Your capacity, and they paid for capacity. That's why your wastewater system capacity is so high, treatment capacity is so high, because you had an assumed industrial load that would be there forever. What happened? The industrial load went away. And now there's no subsidy source left. And that's, if you look back over the last 10 years, in 2007, you did a 19% rate increase across the board. Then the following 2 years, 12%, 12%, and then a 5%. Over the last 10 years, you've averaged 9% per year rate increases on your general utilities. Right. Not because your costs were going so up, it's because your revenue went away from the industrial base. So that's really what happened to this
town.
town.
The other part was we didn't have any rate increases for years and years before that.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
Very small ones.
Yeah, no, yeah, big ones. You did. But the real key, it's not a cost issue with you folks. It's a revenue issue.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Sure.
so common. We see that in Bend. Bend was almost decimated 15 years ago because of the forest product.
Because of Measure 5.
And Medford and Grants Pass. I've done so many of those studies, and it's always the same story. So, system development charges.
So can I just ask one question to Sue and Neil? What is the cost? Right up. What is the cost difference between? Doug was talking about the basalt. Would it be feasible to bring back the blasting? I mean, I know we can still do that, but would it be feasible to bring back blasting? We got hard rock. And
it's not. Yeah, it's not up to us, but for projects that our crews do, no, because just to have the blaster walk in the door and not even set a charge is probably over $10,000 just for that.
Yeah. Insurance is gone. So
Yeah, it's
because we used to do it. I mean, I remember watching from.
We can't even
Oh,
do
yeah.
it on site anymore.
no, you'd have
Bend and Redmond are the same situation, and they're in
Yeah.
the same boat. They have a blaster come in, and they had a project that they had to. It was a $100,000 project for, I think it was 400 lineal feet.
Yeah.
In ours,
Well, and particularly what I'm.
because of the rock.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
the rock and the
Particularly in-
distance that they have to travel every day, twice a day to bring the blasting material here and then return any unused material back to the armory.
So particularly, I was thinking of, and it would be an urban renewal district deal. Would be the Old Portland Road area because we need to put infrastructure out that way,
Yeah.
and that's going to be hardcore.
Yeah.
It is. No, it's a hardcore.
Well, it will be hardcore expensive.
Hardcore.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
It'll be hardcore
Yeah.
expensive.
So, but we offer that option to any contractor when we put a contract out for bid, and it requires some open excavation for any type of utility, sewer, water, storm, whatever it is. We offer that option to them. They are welcome to have a blaster do that, but the insurance costs,
We hardly
just
ever get anybody to do it that way. because
yeah.
It's not cost effective.
Yeah, it ends up.
Just
It ends
curious.
up. Yeah,
Used to be. Yep.
it used to be.
You're
Yes.
right, it used to be.
Yeah, and for some projects, it might still be the way to go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
trying to be sympathetic to you.
Yeah, I know.
I'm blowing your schedule.
I run long meetings anyhow. It's not your fault. I don't know. Just seems to happen.
Why do we update SDCs? Well, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the overview of the proposed versus the current for all of these services. We'll give specific details of the analysis, and then the obligatory neighboring communities chart. So it has been the policy of almost all cities and in statute in Oregon to periodically review and update the methodology for SDCs. It's held in Oregon Revised Statute ORS 223. Last reviewed for water and stormwater and parks was 2007, so it's 10 years on those. And in 2013, water and transportation were updated because you had new master plans for that. But we took another peek at water since we were we had the hood open, so we thought we'd take a look. Transportation seems to be fine based on conversations with Sue. Opportunity to marry your SDCs with your currently adopted capital improvement plans. Matt now puts out 5-year capital improvement plans that the council reviews and is part of your budget process. You should be doing that, and you are doing that. That's a good thing. So here is what your current suite of SDCs is, and I put streets in there just so you show what, like this, the gentleman here said, I wrote a check for $40,000. Well, if you want to build a new single-family house, you're going to write a check for $10,643, and these are the components. We are recommending that you raise that level to $13,626. The preponderance of the increase is for parks. That funding source for parks that we talked about that those folks are looking for. And we'll talk because you just had a 2015 Parks Master Plan completed. And by the way, it's a great one. It's a good one. Usually they're not very good, but this one was very good. So water. What we've got going on here is just for a 3/4 equivalent meter, which is the standard single-family residential, we're talking about an increase of $850. The reimbursement, I should talk about that for a second. There's 2 fees in a system development charge, a reimbursement fee and an improvement fee. A reimbursement fee is a fee for capacity that's in place and ready to serve. The improvement fee is for planned future capacity, your CIP, your capital improvement plan. So those are the 2 components. And the statute allows you to charge an administration fee to pay for lightweights like me. The improvement fee is increased. The reimbursement fee is higher because you've put a lot of stuff in the ground. You've built stuff over the last 10 years that has capacity to serve growth. So that there's an increment in that stuff you put in the ground, because usually when you do a water project, a portion of it is for replacement. You got to replace an old pipe. Sue's not going to replace a 4-inch line with a 4-inch line. She's going to replace it with an 8-inch line. So there'll be capacity for growth and to replace that worn-out pipe. The improvement fee is fairly modest because projects that were on the old capital improvement list have now moved to the built list. So it's picked up in the reimbursement fee. And then the administration fee. In your old series or suite of STCs, you were charging 1.3% for administration. That's nowhere near enough to fund what it costs to administer these things. So I'm recommending that you raise it up to 5%. So here's wastewater, same situation. Reimbursement fee is slightly higher. You didn't have as much projects done as water, but the improvement fee went up to corresponding because you've got capital projects coming on the books that will expand capacity. Stormwater, what you've got going on here is the same situation. Projects that were on the improvement list have actually been built. Sue and Neil have done quite a few projects, and now they're on your books. They're on your balance sheet. And by the way, your balance sheet, think of yourselves as the board of directors of a corporation. Your water, sewer, and stormwater and parks balance sheet is $60 million, and you're bringing in about $8.5 million a year in revenue. You are by far the largest business in this town in terms of capitalization and in terms of revenue. So just think about that. You are a big, big going concern and critical to this economy. Ooh.
Uh-oh. IT guys.
More smoke.
Yep. So one thing that jumped out at me was our staff cost. I think that definitely needs to be addressed. 1.34%. Yeah, that's very low.
Yeah.
Definitely needs to be looked at. I don't know about the SDCs personally.
Hang on a second. We'll come to the end of that.
Yeah.
I'll show you a chart, and then we can talk about that.
It's actually $25,000 if you want to build a house.
Including
those yes, for everything. It is
Yeah.
$25,000.
Looks like we lost there's our color. Okay.
And that would be an increase, I think, of 3 more.
So here's parks, and this is what I really want you guys to focus on, and this comes directly from your master plan. These good folks that are working on parks here, by your own master plan, you are deficient in every park category except regional parks. If you didn't have Sand Island and McCormick Park, you would be deficient in every category. So the most important parks that people really like to use day to day are neighborhood parks and community parks. And you're severely deficient in both those categories. And you need a new community park on the west side. That's right out of your master plan, and I think you're probably aware of that.
Yep.
So what you see here on the reimbursement side is we're actually proposing to have the reimbursement fee reduced because you have no capacity remaining in your system. There's no capacity for new customers to connect into, to use. So that's kind of compelling. The improvement fee is going up a whole bunch because your Parks Master Plan laid out a capital improvement plan that's very expensive to fix the deficiencies that you have in your park system. So here is the parks, this is all of them, pardon me. You're currently at $13,600. Look at Cornelius. And I live in Washington County, and I built a house a couple of years ago, and I'm not even on sewer, and I had to write a check for $35,000 for a single-family home. And here is the table. What really is something is these are the numbers that made that bar chart, the total. Look at the streets, SDCs in Cornelius and Hillsborough and Forest Grove. That's the MST, Major Transportation System Plan in Washington County. So as you can see, it's kind of all over the place, but your current SDCs are pretty modest relative to everybody else on the group. So
Parks was kind of up there, though. I mean, it was almost $3,000. That's proposed.
that's proposed.
Okay.
Your current is $1,362, which is pretty low. So this is food for thought. I recommend that you adopt these SDCs because, particularly for parks, there is no place else to go for revenue for parks unless you start implementing user fees. And that's kind of the trend in the nation too, is if you want to go to the parks, you got to put a nickel in the meter sort of thing. Treat it just like a utility. And that won't be popular. That won't be popular with anybody. But your park system it needs a more stable and funding source, clearly.
You ain't preaching to me.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah. This is one way to help as long as growth happens. If we don't get any growth, you're not going to get any SDCs, though. So that's it. I've taken a ton of your time. Any thoughts, comments?
Of course. When this comes to play and the news goes out that our SDCs are going to increase, we're going to have this room filled full of contractors,
Development community.
builders.
I'm going to like it. Absolutely.
Is there any way that you know of to keep them from putting their money up front and collecting their collecting a service development charge or paying for the service development charge once the property sells to the buyer, rather than putting the contractor in the
you don't want to do that. You don't want to be the banker.
Can you tell me why?
Basically, what you're saying is you want to be the banker. Yeah. Right. That's not a good policy. You have a voracious appetite for money. You've got more projects than you got money at all times.
Yep.
You're not in the banking business. And then what happens if the property doesn't sell? Then all of a sudden, Matt's on the hook here carrying on your balance sheet a receivable from a developer that may or may not sell. No. You have to have an arm's length transaction with the developers, and you have to be resolute in that. And I get this question a lot, by the way. Can we help these guys out? Can we set up a development bank? Can we do some way to help them where we can carry the costs, we can carry the liability?
But doesn't the livability of communities, doesn't that help them sell their homes?
Yeah.
If there's more parks, if there's more sidewalks, that's going to make more families want to move into their neighborhood because it's a safe way to get your kids to look. The parks are just around the corner. Look, there's all white sidewalks. Look, there's water fountains at the park. There's a bathroom at the park. The grass gets cut every day. That's going to make people want to move there and pay a higher price.
Well, I understand that. It's on the shoulders of developers at this point to put money up front. It's the upfront money that I'm looking at.
But the developer
I understand.
also makes that decision, that speculative investment, for the expectation of making a profit.
Big risk, big risk.
You're not in the profit business.
Right.
You have, like I was telling Keith, your report card is not going to be on what you do today. It's 10 years from now, people are going to say, that council back in 2017 did a good job. Because now we understand what's going on. Just like all these rate increases that had to be done in 2006 and 7, you should really raise the cap to that council because they got you to where a good position you are today. Because they bit a bullet. They swallowed ammunition. They'd had a steady diet of ammunition for several years. And they did a great job. And so that's kind of the report card that I think you should judge yourselves by.
I appreciate your bringing this information to us because it does validate a lot of what we've been talking about and things that I
Totally.
Sure.
It's very helpful.
believe.
So, in closing, we're going to direct staff to take a look at this stormwater thing, and I strongly suggest you revisit that exemption policy. I suggest that you consider adopting the new schedule of SDCs, particularly for parks, because parks, stormwater, and wastewater haven't been reviewed for 10 years. And then I'm also a big champion of doing annual inflation adjustments. Inflation is very low now, so these won't be big rate increases. But it keeps you current. And remember that promise you made to your bondholders? That test that we talked about, that net revenues divided by annual debt service? If you don't adjust your rates, that ratio erodes. And then I have to come back to you and say, oh, by the way, you got to raise your rates because you got to put money in the bank, which is a tough one to sell to ratepayers. We're raising your rates so we could put money in the bank.
Yes. So Keith, when he was talking about you were talking about the water, is that we have to put in that tank too, so that's where it will level back out. When he said, no, you're not, you can't give no money back because of that tank that we have to put on the west side. Or
Steve,
Yeah, I know, it's in there.
can I ask a quick question? I
No.
can't remember. Okay, I'll shut up now. I can't remember because it's been a couple of weeks since I read the full report, but did you propose in the parks SDCs that we charge commercial or non-residential development?
Yeah, good point. Currently, you charge just single-family residentials for park SDCs. You are justified in charging commercials per employee, too. And we've calculated that in the report. It comes out to $60 per employee. So if a new business comes in, there is empirical evidence that commercial development does indeed use your parks.
Yeah.
Industrial development does not. I can't look you in the face and say, if an industrial development is going to come in here, that they're going to use your parks, because they typically don't. But a commercial application does, and we suggest, and you're justified under statute of charging that too.
Sure.
So we've calculated that for you.
so we look forward to getting some more information on our next meeting about the 316 people, and
Ooh, this could take some GIS work.
oh really?
This
Can we
could
shoot
be-
for September or October?
That's not till like
They're going to have to go into the GIS layer and take a look at these properties and understand it a
Hey,
bit.
we're
Right.
skipping a meeting. You got lots of time.
Uh-huh.
Thank
Are
you all.
you going to
Thank
be a
you very
little
much.
little busy, Matt, with your end stuff?
Just a little bit.
little.
Just a little bit.
understandable, Matt. Okay, let's do a Halloween events update. Tina and Chedco. Oh,
Main Street.
Main Street.
Hi, Jasmine Jordan.
Hi, Jasmine.
So I guess we're going to do the Main Street report
Yep.
first.
Yep.
Tina's just allowing me to go first since this is my last report. So there should be a slideshow. It's just a slide, very boring, but just to keep us on track. Just pull that open. All right, yeah, you can just keep it on the first page for now. So I just want to thank you guys first for giving me the opportunity to serve as a rare volunteer. Next week's my last week, but I'll be out most of the week in Eugene doing final stuff for them. So I'll be here next Friday, though.
We would like to thank you very much, Jasmine, for all the hard work that you put in and being a member of our community too. And we hope that you continue to come back and join us in our events.
Yeah, I love seeing
Yes.
Helens.
Yep.
Yeah, this is so I've had a lot of fun. I'm just gonna briefly run down some of the stuff that I've been doing. First, I just want to let you guys know that talk to you guys a little bit about Rare. So you guys have had Rare volunteers, I think, for about like 5 or 6 years, and usually their goal is to, in some way, build capacity for Shedco, which is a downtown association. And so you can kind of see throughout the years, volunteers are focused on different things. The first volunteers tend to kind of focus on getting them approved as a 501c3 and helping them doing those initial setups. A lot of the middle volunteers worked on different events and promotions. I worked on a lot of things that I thought would help Shedco be self-sustainable in a way without having a rare volunteer. We kind of knew this before, even last year in the initial documents that I received from you guys or from the city said that that's what their goal was. We found out recently that Shedco isn't going to have a rare next year. I think they're kind of moving on at least for now. So it was good that I tried to focus on the list a little. So I'm going to let you guys know kind of what I summed up and am hoping to pass on to either the next person, whoever fills this spot, and most likely now who's going to be mainly the volunteers and stuff of Shedco. So I'm just going to go down this list pretty briefly to talk about my projects. So first, I didn't print this out just because I didn't think it was too relevant, but so I finished a report for RARE, and in the beginning it talks about what my position is, what is involved, and a list of comprehensive projects. And so I'm just going to read that list off just so you guys have a sense of what I did this year. So they're not in a list of chronologically, it's just of how I thought of them. So the biggest thing was the El Tapatito restaurant expansion, the grant for that. I was the main grant writer for that. For the Salmon Tree project, I helped, mainly assisted the grant for that one. Those are ones we received. I worked on a couple of others that we didn't receive, but those are mainly also for the tree project. The Maestro Data and Volunteer Recruitment Project, I'm going to talk about that. It's a big one. The Shedco website, newsletter, and the strategic doing, which I think is important moving on. We'll talk about that. The wayfinding plan and public meetings, that's more of like the city's work, and just the different events that we did throughout the year. So the first thing I want to talk about is recruitment and organizational tools. So the list there is just kind of get your mind around what Shedco could be used once I'm gone. So a lot of the resources and stuff are digital that were stored on the computer upstairs. All of those documents and information have been transferred over to the board through different, mainly online cloud systems. So I use Dropbox for most of those. MailChimp, that's where you can find all of the information about contacts and stuff. Maestro, that's the big one. So Maestro, I really encourage Shedco board to use this afterwards, and this is kind of going to link us to the Main Street program. And to not forget that even though Shedco won't be associated with RARE this year, they're still a Main Street organization and still have all the access to all of the Main Street information. Maestro is a Main Street program. It's not a RARE program. So it was built by people who are Main Street organizers, and their specific goal is to improve Main Street programs. So right now, the Shedco board are the ones who have they have access to that and all the different volunteers. So that will hopefully help them with their recruitment. So because there's ways of organizing the volunteers that way, and then it'll also hopefully help with keeping their contacts organized since they don't have that central database upstairs, and also keeping events organized and stuff. So I know that Shedco might be taking on more responsibilities a little bit later on now that the other community organization is shutting down. So hopefully, I know because of that, there's going to be a lot of new people volunteering faces, and so hopefully they can use that. It's an easy system to use, and it doesn't require that many hours because I put most of the hours in already building up the initial database. So that's really important moving forward. Also, the second thing is, like I said, MailChimp, Dropbox. Those are just all different sites that there's a lot of information on for you guys to continue these projects. Strategic doing and listserv. Again, all of this is so you guys can continue projects next year when you don't have the RARE. So the strategic doing is the process that the whole board went through that is a way of creating small action plans of getting things done quickly. So we tried it out once with the first newsletter that you guys probably received. That was it succeeded pretty well. Everyone just did a little bit of work and got a lot of things done. So strategic doing is, as I mentioned before, a project that's implicated by one of the universities in the Midwest, I think Purdue. So it's a pretty large system. There's a lot of different people involved in that, and there's listservs and stuff that are where people talk about the system. All of that information can be found in Dropbox as well. So there's also if you guys want to have another workshop where you figure out what you want to do next, moving forward, the Shedco board, and maybe you guys will be invited, you can use that same process, or I'm sure you can think of something else if you want to. But I just want to know that I'm leaving everything for you guys pretty organized in the Dropbox and MailChimp, Squarespace, all of those. So there's also a letter that I'm writing. So I'm writing 2 letters, one to go to you guys, the city, specifically Jacob, with all that information and passwords and stuff where you can access all of that. Project reports, things like that. Also, you can find project reports in Maestro. So if any of you guys want access to that Dropbox or the Maestro, I can easily add your email. It's just adding your email is really easy. So if you want me to do that, I can. And besides that, I will be adding Jenny and Jacob normally, and so I figured they would probably do most of the stuff. Okay, so that kind of ties up that. So data and social media management, that's probably that's very important right now. The promotions committee does a lot of that already, at least when it comes to social media management. And so I just want to say that, I don't know, I feel like we've made a lot of progress this year in reaching out to some of the business owners through specifically the newsletter and then some of the specific promotions where we had people going to different businesses. I know Inspiration to Rain project, it didn't rain that much during that time, but even way, the people who finished the projects and we brought it back to me, so we had people coming and giving me final things, really, had a lot of good things to say about the businesses. The business owners seemed to like it, that it wasn't just someone coming, it wasn't a kid coming in and asking for them to sign something for an elf, but a lot of times there were adults who did the project and they bought stuff and stuff like that. So I really want to say, focusing on the improving our social media could be a good thing to focus on when there isn't a rare. So because it's something easy to do. But I think that promotions does a lot of that already. Last 3 topics I'll get through pretty quickly. So the Oregon Main Street grant. Everything for that is going forward pretty smoothly, I believe. I know you guys, the LTAP, there's permissions to expand the lot were just approved, so hopefully they'll be getting through that. All of that, again, the access to the grant online. I talked to Curry Gill today, who is the administrator for the Oregon State program, and she said that I can give her names and emails of anyone I want added to that system as well. So for that system, it's just reporting that has to be done once a year. Based on how the project is going. It's pretty easy reporting, meaning like drop-down menus, how many have you completed the project, how far are you along, how much. So LTAP is going to do that, but I really want to make sure you guys keep that in your back of your minds, just so you know the reporting is due once a year. Since there isn't going to be a rare, it's going fall on the shoulders for Shedco mainly, but the city should just check on that to make sure. So in that sense, I'm adding. The Shedco board will have access to that, so I'm assuming, Al will probably do it. You guys probably, or Amanda. And also, I'm adding, Jenny is already in the system, and Jacob as well. So again, if any of you guys want to see that, you can. And so Rare in the Main Street program, as I mentioned, I believe, Shedco or Rare put St. Helens on a wait list for next year a few weeks ago, and I believe that it's kind of past time now, so I think that we know for sure that they're not getting a volunteer next year. And I don't, that kind of is a lot to do with funding and stuff, and different programs move around a lot. So, obviously that's something that the city wants to think about, if what they want to do moving forward, if they want to continue funding or whatever, or if they want to apply to Rare next year or not, but just to keep that in mind, because if you guys do decide to apply to Rare next year, you're probably won't get all the emails of reminding you, so you have to think about it and actually do it. And I think those are due like November. So I don't know if you guys are thinking about that or not, but that's just something on the horizon. The end in the future, I have a week left. I'm not going to be here most of next week. I'll be here tomorrow and Friday, then Thursday, Friday. I'm moving back to Ohio for now, so just for school. So
nice.
And that's all I have. So
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I just can't say thank you enough, Jasmine. I just didn't have that many opportunities to work with you, but
up on the shelf.
What I did see is I saw that you were included in our community. You lived in our community. You shopped in our community, and you were a citizen for the year that you were here. You weren't just here to volunteer or here to work, and so you brought a really unique perspective to the Rare opportunity for Shedco and for council, and I think that was reflected in your report, and I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Okay, how about now, Halloween event updates, Tina and Chedco.
Tina Curry Consulting for events, and I just wanted to open by saying thank you to Jenny and Keith and Mayor Randy and everybody that was involved in 4th of July. Rick, sorry. we had a great 4th of July, and I think it showed with how many people came out. We had a record-breaking crowd, I think, in the park, and we had great music, and people got out of there. I know I got out of here within 45 minutes, even though I was helping to clean up and do some other things in the meantime, traffic-wise. So the traffic worked out really well, and we made 4 times what we did last year in parking, which is interesting to note.
I tried promoting it because you do get out so fast.
Yeah.
You know, it's worth it just to be able to come out
It's
and
totally.
go.
My chair.
Yeah.
Packing my chairs and my cooler is worth $20.
Yeah. So I think the response from people was really well received, and we didn't get any complaints that I know of. We didn't really have anyone doing social media and such because I was just working as a volunteer, and I know you guys were not on social media that much, but we put it out as much as possible for Columbia County events and Discover Columbia County. So. And as far as the vendors go, I think the vendors were all happy. I know that Chief Moss and their group raised over $800 selling popcorn, and I think everybody did pretty well.
Yeah, I think
Keith might have, you guys.
Actually, I think
might
the
have-
elk sold out a little too early.
Well, they brought it based on last year.
Yes.
So
yes.
The weather was warmer and the crowd was double.
I really had my heart set on a cheeseburger, and I didn't get a cheeseburger.
the band probably ate yours.
You had to be here at dinner time to get a burger. There was no burgers at 7:30.
But I think overall, you know, for putting it together in kind of pieces, it came out and you know, met the expectations. On Halloween, I just want to let you know generally how it's going, because I've got a lot of contracts that are proprietary to myself only. But we have met with the Chronicle and Shoestring, and they're bringing some new ideas. We're going to have a major announcement with the Chronicle and the position that they're taking within Halloween Town and the Spirit of Halloween Town activities. And those should be available within the next 30 days. And we have 4 major new events that are going to be happening all month long. And so that visitors that come during the weekdays will have things to do during the day and during the evening. Because that's always, even though we tell them there's nothing happening, they come because they want to come for the photo ops, and then they're like, what else can we do? So even though they didn't complain because we told them there's just the photo ops, we think that we should try to do something that keeps them active and busy during the weekdays. So we've come up with a whole program for that, and the activities that happened last year are basically like the chamber's going to do the parade, and that's on the same weekend as our community pumpkin lighting weekend. And we have more vendors than we had last year. All the carts got reserved really quickly when I put an announcement out on the media, and other people still might be doing things that we don't know about yet that we can add to the agenda, but the agenda is looking really good.
Nice.
So that's kind of it. And then one other thing is we have people that are coming from like Florida to do acts here and volunteer groups that are coming from Florida to do acts here, which is really cool. But we want to have a stage for them. So, as always, I push to get a stage of some sort built around.
I did include under department reports to talk about the Columbia View Park expansion and the contract.
Yeah.
You know, how hard would it be to build a stage that could, and you'd have to clear with the court, with the county, but for the weekend that you could actually set together right after it closed down at 5 o'clock near the steps there. That would be an awesome place, and take up that first parking spot and a little bit of the sidewalk would be an awesome place to have a stage, and that as the backdrop.
There's been stages there in the past.
Oh yeah, they used to park a flatbed freezing lumber trailer
Yeah,
there.
I've been here when there's been live music in front of the courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
No, the foundation had one a few years ago.
That went in front of the courthouse?
that I built, but it's destroyed now. It's taken its weather's toll.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I was thinking maybe something out of steel that would be easy just to snap together, lock in place, and you know, I mean, this
Well,
is
part of the
something
challenge in just having a stage there is that there's paid events. So then we have to like close the plaza, no photo ops or anything else, which are all free, would be allowed to go on during ticketed events. So that's a little bit of a challenge. And I would love to have a stage there, but then that doesn't like supersede a stage where we can have paid entertainment.
Do you need two venues?
No.
I just am asking.
No, I don't think so. I think we can manage because we're renting like above 2C's vendor mall for a couple of functions, and so that's working out okay. We can find little vignettes. It's too bad the old school is now basically closed down because of insurance prices. She's not having any events ever again at the old school.
Wow.
For sale?
Yep.
It's been for sale for a long time.
Yeah. But that's too bad because that is such a great venue and it's so close. And 2C's is going to only allow us to go in there for one day of the month that I begged her for, because they're doing a whole vendor mall upstairs at 2C's. So, anyway, I push for the stage, as always.
How much does stages cost to rent?
They're really expensive. They're super expensive, especially for a month. I'd say like $20,000 to $30,000 for a real stage. Yeah.
Yep.
For spending. But that's why major concerts rent them, you know, because they can afford that.
Yeah. Little Halloween town
Yeah.
can afford that.
That's it's a lot, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe someday.
So, well, maybe they'll the stage people will sponsor it and provide us a stage.
That's it. You know what? I might want to talk to that Maui guy and see if he knows anybody that we could talk to.
And we do have one celebrity that I can say is coming. Diane Franklin is coming through a contact through Mayor Ricks, and so that's kind of fun. She was in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Better Off Dead and a number of television and fun movies for that are like horror stories.
Yep.
So.
I might add that he and I have been working on the budget, potential revenues, and you know, last year we came pretty close to covering expenses minus one blowout weekend where the weather was just torrential, and kind of overlaying that same contingency would look to be, you know, slightly better. There's not quite as much asset purchases this year. We're not buying cabs and things, so we should be. Our cost recovery should be pretty par, hopefully.
Yeah, in fact, this year we're paying the
October, so
carts off that we bought last year, so that's really good because we have, you know, they all sold out and we had a couple more built. So people can still contact me and say, hey, I want to do this, and we'll see if we can make it fit in, but we're trying not to overlap items and ingredients and things like that so that we can kind of hedge their bets and keep the vendors happy.
Have a good
and
variety.
We have lots of new food vendors this year. So,
Look forward to it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Tina, thank you for 4th of July, because I know you hadn't
Yeah.
to work because we were busy most of the time. So anyway, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
Sorry,
Yep,
Shedco half.
yep.
I'm Amanda Normine, Vice Chair with Shedco from St. Helens, Oregon.
Gretchen Williams, St. Helens, Oregon, Shedco Treasurer, board member.
So as you all know, since we focus on the Main Street corridor, people naturally connect us with events like 4th of July, Halloween Town. When we did a review on our program, some of the biggest feedback we got was on these large events. So we have, along with the potential changes with the foundation, have been taking a look at what we can do to kind of strengthen the connection with the city and how we can be more of a facilitator than a doer. So as we looked back over last year, what we want to accomplish this year, there was a few priorities that we came out with. One was the community buy-in, another was business inclusion, and then the final piece, my favorite, making sure that no one leaves with any money in their pockets. We want to help make sure that everyone that comes spends. So those are kind of the areas that we can help in. You guys invest a lot in making the event happen. Tina comes in and plans the event. Where we can come in is we can help bring people, navigate. We have a lot of volunteers that love being kooky and dressing up. We can put wayfinders on the corners that are directing people around. The biggest thing for us, however, is communication and knowing what's going on so that we can connect all of those dots. And that's why we're here today, is we need to understand what role we can take, what role is desired for us to take, and also be a voice of concern for some of the businesses that have come to us so far. End of last year, we held several open forum meetings around tourism and around just how businesses felt. And I know that several of you were there. Many businesses feel left out. They feel like downtown is kind of the cool kids club during Halloween Town, and they are essentially not included. In November 2016, Spotlight published a recap about the six-figure spending. And John, you were quoted in saying, it's okay, we're not in it for profit, we're in it to support local businesses. I'm here because I'm concerned that this year, I don't know where that support is for local businesses. We've been in touch with Tina about helping to facilitate getting opportunities for local businesses to get involved, and we've been told there are no opportunities to bid on anything for Halloween Town for local businesses. The vendor carts are full. I didn't see an all-call. Many of the local businesses didn't see an all-call. And when there's a mandate saying we're going to do our best to include local businesses, it's disappointing that no local businesses have been directly contacted. We're here saying, hey, we want to help, and we will make sure that we get things in front of these businesses. If there are truly no opportunities for them, then we need to be working together to create them. We've requested to meet with Tina 3 times. The last note from her was that there's really nothing we need to meet about. So I'm here with a list of questions that hopefully you guys can answer, seeing as how it seems like you guys will be the best ones to do so. The first question was, what changes were made this year to ensure that local businesses get preference?
I think that it's been known, though, because I sat in on the meetings last year, that if you wanted a cart to come see Tina early and pay, you had to pay money, but she also gave people numbers of what they made in that, because I'm a businessman as well. And I recall that meeting at the auditorium at the high school, and she did give people numbers and gave them numbers of what they could expect to make and that they should get a hold of her early. If I recall, if you took minutes at that meeting, I would recall that that was said.
Right, and I'm not talking about just about carts. A lot of our local, like the Main Street businesses, can't afford to maintain both. So we went with a proposal of having a cart for us. We were too late, and I understand that. But my concern is that we're spending all this money bringing people here, but none of our businesses are benefiting from it. If we're if we're feeding visitors, even if we're asking for donations, we should be looking local and having an opportunity for our businesses to provide those donations in turn for having their name out there.
Is that none of our businesses? Absolutely none? N-O-N-E or some?
So all of the ones I've talked to that are not downtown, there's no opportunity to be involved. I asked Tina, what could we help connect you with bids on? What are some things that you need that we could maybe go to local businesses and get? And we were told nothing. There is nothing.
Okay, I would say that it's a marketing opportunity for local businesses. We bring these events to the community, and it's an opportunity for businesses to capitalize on it. They've all been invited along with local organizations to create events, and we'll include them and we'll help market those events.
And I think we did create an event actually, and there's going to be a bus that takes them up that way towards the chamber, and they're encouraged to walk down through businesses. So that has been done right there.
Do you have some info
on
on
what Shedco could do is help them create some of these events that then could be included in the schedule.
And that was one of our plans, was to basically connect things. So our idea was for like the pumpkin lighting, we want to have a taste of the county, basically, where businesses can come and provide samples, and it could be a paid event where people come in and they can actually have a presence. We did discuss with Tina, and she mentioned that it could potentially happen on the local pumpkin lighting. I don't know what that would look like. I guess that's my question for you. If we did combine with the local lighting, do we have a presence down here? What are limitations?
To find a location.
Well,
Is there a building?
We can do that on our own. My thing is, if we're combining with the pumpkin lighting, the idea is that we're playing nice together.
What we're doing is collaborating, though. We don't have to operate together and plan everything together. Bring us an event that you want to do.
Yeah, that's the way I understand it, because the youth council is doing the Halloween dance, and it's present the city with your date and the information about your event. That's every single person's been invited to do that. The meetings for Halloween happened the same night as youth council, and I saw 3 people in this room, and we had to take 15 kids upstairs because 3 people were in this room. So if you have meetings and no one comes, there's only so much you can do. And having worked every single weekend last Halloween Town, and having lived within 3 blocks of Halloween Town, it's like, if businesses are closed, I'm just putting this out there. People need to be open. They need to be receptive to the business, because the people that I know, the businesses I were open, you can talk to Jilly. She's like, as long as there's people coming in my door, I'm not locking it.
It's a great time for businesses to do promotions for themselves. Be open, special time, call it.
They just have to give her the date and the hours. That's all they have to do is, we're going to be open every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we're doing this for the kids, and they'll be on the list.
So I guess
It's
my
not a
question is,
membership-only thing.
because we can do events. We have an uptown fair that we could do. But my question is, my understanding is, as Shedco, and part of the city council's goals is that we work together. We have a ton of people coming downtown, and they've said, hey, we want more to do.
Right.
For example, we want to do the taste and combine. Am I correct in hearing that we can't do it downtown? That it's going to have to be at a different location? And
No.
So that's what I'm asking you. What do we need to do to have an event down
for
here?
a permit, and we have to see if there's anything else going on that it conflicts with.
Where
And
is
I mean,
it
there's a
you wanna
number.
have it?
There's a number of processes through the application. I have to go to Heidi for my even mayor had to go to Heidi and say, what day in the park can I have?
Yeah.
August 12th is available. Okay, I had to fill out all the necessary paperwork. I had to do everything any other citizen would do, and you have to do that you have to start working on these things a little ways out, and you're not too late. I would definitely brainstorm, get back to, and find out some dates that you want. We're going to be here in a month from now, and I don't think it's still too early, but it can't conflict with another. If there's somebody else got the street shut down, I can't say, well, I'm mayor and I deserve
Right.
that. Well, they were first come, first serve.
Well, and
Also-
that's what
also,
I'm
do you
asking.
want to have it in a park? Do you want to have it in an empty building? In which case you negotiate with people that own the building?
Yeah, or
What's-
do you want part of a street shutdown? Because that's a whole nother process.
Well,
that has to go through
that's
Neil
our
and-
question. We want to partner the local Halloween, the lighting, the local pumpkin lighting. We would like to have a presence downtown. I don't care if it's in a parking lot, if it's on the water. I don't know
Then
where
you go
you're planning
around
on
and
using.
Ask people that have buildings, or you make arrangements to reserve space in the park.
Well, that's what I'm asking you. Because I've asked Tina, and she said that there was nothing she could answer. On the pumpkin lighting, is there any space on city property that you're not using that we could put up a tent?
Okay,
we want to be downtown in the main area. It doesn't have to be the plaza because obviously that's taken with the lighting. But like I said, it doesn't matter where exactly. We just want to have it be part of that event.
Okay, well, I recommend you doing is giving us a proposal. Then we will review it, and we obviously have to go through also and clear it with our RFP position and make sure. But there should be ways and means of making sure if anybody wants to be included on this, they can be. And you guys are here early enough that we should be able to work with you.
Okay, the pumpkin lighting happens in a really a small, narrow window of time. What about having it after the pumpkin lighting?
Well, we're thinking of like that the week, it being an event like the Taste of, or like the Bite of Portland.
What if it were to follow the pumpkin lighting that same night?
Right, we're thinking all day up to and after, like something that people could go to, maybe even the weekend. That's what we have a plan of what we want to do, and we have restaurants that want to participate. We just
so what you
know.
need to understand is we have to also feed the Halloween Town is drawing in people and spending a lot of money. And John said it was about business, but we also have to collect a little small fee, and that's what was required of those carts was a little small fee in order to support Halloween Town. But you get the benefit of making $3,000. The cart costs you $600, but you can make potentially $3,000 to $5,000. It depends on what your niche is, and that's up to every business, is to find their niche of what they want to, how they want to draw people in.
Sure.
And we as a council don't know what space is available around here. That's something that you guys need to explore.
So for sure we can work. I would brainstorm some ideas.
Right. Well, because we have alternate space. I guess the misunderstanding is we have the event to where we can have it elsewhere, but part of the idea is that our local businesses, they want to feel included in Halloween Town. One way to do it is to have it in Halloween Town.
We are going to bring people uptown. It's unfortunate that the thing was shot down here, and this is the most popular spot. You know, I mean, that's unfortunate.
People go uptown. The St. Frederick's Bazaar is packed.
Yeah.
Absolutely packed. Bertucci's did business this last year. They're engaging in other events this year to bring people uptown. This haunted hand thing that I don't totally understand, but I'm sure when I see it, it'll make sense to me. But they're doing a lot of events that go all the way to the chamber. And the idea is that Halloween Town will begin at Highway 30 and Columbia Boulevard. It will not begin here at the Pumpkin.
We also want to see it expand, but we don't have control over everything.
I don't think that harnessing it all in this little square of grass is the right message to send businesses anywhere.
But if you want to do
If
something,
people want to participate, no matter where their business is located, home business, whatever, people should be allowed to participate. And so, I mean, I don't think harnessing, like, people have to have a piece of the grass in order to be included in Halloween Town. I think visitors, having seen visitors for 30 days, they wanted to walk the streets of our entire town. They wanted every business to be open. They wanted to go in and they wanted to buy stuff from Halloween Town.
And
so that's what they
but
want.
they have to know that there's something about Halloween
And
Town.
so that's, I would encourage any business to engage if they want to do a coloring contest, they want to do a scavenger hunt. All those ideas have been done before and are welcome and well received in those communities, and the city will promote them with their Halloween Town.
When is it?
We used to do the I Spy all over town.
Yeah,
It's very
all those
popular.
things are ideas that are.
when is
right
your
out
next
there for
Shedco meeting?
Next Thursday, 27th.
Okay, get something together, work something out at that meeting, get something together, get it down here to Heidi so we can see it. Okay? And then if we have any questions or concerns, we'll give you a call.
Plus an idea
Okay, or
of
an
the amount of
email.
space that you need.
Well, and that's, we didn't want to spend time putting a proposal together if it's a no-go with vendor contracts, or if, we just need to know what we need to do because we do have to secure the other venue if not, but this is preferable.
For you not to be in conflict with vendor contracts.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know what would be required because I don't know what the vendor contracts say.
And try
but
to
if we know,
just try to be descriptive as possible, okay? So we know exactly, you know, and we'll definitely be working with you guys, okay? We're not here to work against anybody.
And we certainly want to see the whole town
Yep,
involved.
yep.
Everything doesn't have to happen here.
You know, from my perception, there's just a lot of good ideas floating around and a lot of energy, a lot of good things can come out of this. And just working with people all my life, knowing and building teams and those kinds of outcomes is when laying blame and pointing fingers at anyone, no matter who it is, who's doing it, whatever, will kill it. It'll kill it right in its tracks, and that's along with sports and events and everything else. So I hope we can all pull up and raise the bar a little bit in terms of standards of working together, and I think that's really important. And I see you coming forward and bringing forward some good ideas, and I hope we can do that. I hope we can raise the bar a little so we aren't pointing fingers at each other. And that's, I'm not involved in it. I'm just kind of watching it from kind of a coach's standpoint from where I've been all my life. And so that's what I see. So hopefully we can get over that.
I absolutely agree. I think the communication is going to be key. When is the next Halloween-centered meeting? Is there a set one? Or, Tina, when is the next? I'm asking about the public meeting. You're saying only 3 people were here. We'd like to be involved and open up that communication. When can we come to hear what's planned and be a part of it? Is there one set?
I'm sure it's probably a lot of it's already planned, and that's why I'm asking you girls to get the information to us. And because I'm looking for the calendar over here, and it's down. But so you guys meet on the 27th. I'm hoping that you guys will have it to us by August 1st, because that gives us 2 months, and that's sufficient time we can review and get back to you, and we'll make something work. Because that's actually really short notice for an event like this. 2 months.
And
it really is.
That you come up with, we can help you market them.
Yep. So I'm proposing that you guys should be able to have us something by Tuesday. So that gives you.
We're not meeting the 1st of August.
I know, but at least something to our staff
Yes.
and city, and we can see emails and stuff like that.
Yeah,
okay.
we can definitely do that. And then the final question: you said there's a shuttle. Is that every day, or because we want to make sure that we can also keep everybody in coordinating?
I think it's going to be weekends, more around the events, I think, but I'm not completely sure.
Yeah, there's activities all week, but the shuttle's just on the Saturday and Sundays.
Just on Saturday and Sunday?
Yes.
Okay. Because we were looking at providing a shuttle too, so we wanted to.
They're looking at shuttle. I'm not sure, but they're looking at expanding it. I know that Tina and I talked about that there was upwards over 500 people in the square every single day, whether it was pouring down raining or not. And so we thought it was a shame. So they're looking at maybe doing a partnership with CC Rider and seeing how many days of the week. Minimum it'll be the weekend, but probably, it'll be look like every day or for limited hours, afternoon, evening, it's like we realize that getting people around town is important.
Right. Because if we can have the stops and kind of have that, our goal is to help cross collaborate and, like I said, do more. This one event is the one thing that the restaurants want to make happen. Other than that, we want to help connect with things that are already going on. Meet with you about the scarecrow thing. We want to be more behind the scenes than we do doing. So we'll put something together on that. And
thing is doing.
Yep.
Bring your bribe Thursdays. And then if you think of anything as a group that we can provide, we're working on putting people in witches' costume and doing a witch hunt. And then also wayfinding witches. So people that are just kind of, hey, where can we get a good burger? Oh, go here, here, here. So we're working on some things like that, but if there's any holes that you as a council see, let us know or send them with Susan and her bribe on Thursday.
So those witches that are down here roaming around when there's thousands of people here should have coupons for uptown.
Yep. Yep. So that's what we're thinking, wayfinding witches with having an apron full of info and sending people around. And so, but we'd love to add to it things that we can do. We have a lot of volunteers that enjoy the holiday and enjoy activities like that. So if there is something that we can provide that maybe we're missing, that's what we're looking right now is kind of how to fill in the gaps.
Sure.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, we'll be talking to you girls.
I'm just giving you a parade update.
Okay.
So I have my application completed yet again.
Parade
I had a little
great last year.
Thank you. So as soon as I walk out the door, I'm gonna go and turn it in, and it should be fine. So yeah, the parade is set for October 7th, 3 p.m. And I had already coordinated the time with Tina just to make sure that, you know, she had nothing going on. I didn't want the parade running through any other event. And she informed me that that is the same night as the community pumpkin lighting. I do have a question for you real quick. It was discussed like way earlier in the year about creating a new pumpkin, a bigger one. Is that truly going to happen this year? I'll explain to you why I'm asking. Because, well, for one, I'd like to know if Jack is going to be used for the community pumpkin light. Okay, never mind that. You knew where I was going with that, huh? I wanted him to be in my parade because Byron is going to be the Grand Marshal. All right, I would appreciate that. That like, make me very happy. Very. All right.
All right.
I guess that's it. You guys know how to get a hold of me if you have any questions?
Yes, we do.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I am like completely way behind looking at my schedule here. Matt, municipal court report. Where?
Crystal.
Oh,
Back.
yep. Sorry, Crystal. Let's hear from our communications gal, Crystal. It's not my fault that it went out of order.
Is this, am I supposed to use this?
It's the right side. There you go.
Crystal Farnsworth, Communications Officer for the City of St. Helens. And I am here to give my quarterly report, which covers April through June of 2017, which is also the fourth quarter end of last fiscal year. I was going to, but then forgot to include stats for comparison on this workload indicator-wise for years past, since I had a full calendar year worth of activities tracked, and was comparing it to since I've begun communications work for the city and what it looked like in past years. And this last fiscal year, we actually had more activity than since 2012 in several of the areas, and in other tracking areas like Twitter and gazettes and e-newsletters, actually the most we've had so far to date. And that does then factor into the fact that we've also added things that we weren't doing when we first started bringing communications internally, such as we're now doing monthly radio programs at Kohai. We have an Instagram account. We just added another Twitter account. So activity is way up. And part of that is contributed by the fact that Matt has been allocating staff time a little differently since taking over the finance department, which frees up my time to do other things related and dedicated to communications. Jamie's training to do business licenses, and has been doing the general bi-monthly processing of those that I'm just reviewing instead of having to process all of them. So it frees up my time to focus on a lot of communications things that I haven't been able to do in the past. And I am just going to allow you at your own, if you want to go back, to look at all of these statistics, but included in both the Facebook and Twitter analytics is stats that focus on our top reach during the last quarter that I'm reporting on. I do want to highlight, though, thanks to Jenny for sending this to me, our branding and wayfinding consultants did online surveys as part of that wayfinding program that we asked citizens to go online, take a survey, tell us what they thought of the conceptual drawings and the plan. And they also tracked in one of the questions, how did people hear about, I think not the event, but the survey, or open house survey. Yeah, they said event, but it was really the survey. So we tracked how people had found out about it. And I want to highlight that we had over 3/4 of the people that found out through either the e-newsletter or social media. And then, actually, I think that was for the open house, how they heard about the open house. And then we're at, so then we also tracked when we had the survey go live, 2 days before it closed, we had 80 respondents, and Jenny and I kind of brainstormed about better, like, what can we do to promote this to get more response? So we did a special e-newsletter email send out to people that was just dedicated to, hey, have you taken the survey? Have you heard about it? Please go here. There's 2 days left. And then also put some stuff out on Facebook and Twitter. And within those 2 days, we got 223 people to respond. So definitely good return for what we did. Activity highlights from the past quarter. I do want to point out, since Terry isn't here, we had a lot of great stuff happen with the police department this last quarter. They were accredited through the Oregon Accreditation Alliance, which is a multi-year for them process that involves a lot of staff hours. So we covered that a lot. We put it on Facebook. We did press release, Twitter. We did an in-depth article in the Summer Gazette. And like our press release was picked up by the Oregon Association Chiefs of Police website. If you looked at last week's, I don't know if it was the Chronicle or Spotlight, somebody had put a letter to the editor in there congratulating the police department for their accreditation and the hours that they put into doing that. So good community response on that. I want to thank both the Spotlight and the Chronicle for coming to our CERT graduation this last May. Holly Habe, who does a tremendous job with our local St. Helens Community Emergency Response Team. She puts in a lot of man hours into keeping their volunteers engaged and trained and assisting with other CERT programs in our region. Is also involved in the yearly graduation for our CERT program that we do, and was talking to me last year in 2016 when they held their final simulated disaster trainings, that she really wished that they could get some media coverage on what CERT does, because not a lot of people know about it. So we put a plan together. We contacted the Spotlight and the Chronicle, invited them to come, and Cody and Nicole both showed up and participated in the disaster as reporters. Yeah. Did you have fun? Yeah. And then wrote great articles that appeared in the newspapers. So thank you for that. Holly really appreciated that. And it got us good coverage for a great program that is run by the police department in association with Columbia River Fire and Rescue. Yay, Sue! Sue was our staff star of the quarter when we had K2 come out for a special signage request that had been denied by the city. So she got to go on air and did a good job. And then just as a note, in case anybody has noticed, in the last quarter, our Facebook name changed to include government in it. And it's because Facebook changed our requirements, all requirements for government entities, that they had to have something in the name that designated that you were with the local government or your government agency, and it meant changing our name and then having to go through Facebook to re-verify our account, which has been done. Then I also want to highlight that the police department also held Lemonade with a Law, which was great at Burgerville again, and had some new things for kids to do, including this cute little standee with our canine officer that they could take pictures with, and also launched a new app for the police department where citizens can go online, get notifications of emergency alerts if we ever have them, and they can also report in the field any kind of code or nuisance violations that they see. So if they're uncomfortable, potentially, you can do it anonymously. If they're uncomfortable calling or showing up or writing a complaint form and submitting it to the city, they can use this app and anonymously submit a nuisance violation, take a picture of it, put the address in there, and then it's immediately emailed out to either an officer, if that's the designated person that would respond to that, code enforcement. They get an email notification and they're able to follow up. We also, I spent this last quarter, we have a social media policy that has yet to be adopted. And I spent the last quarter, since I had some time, updating that policy and also updating our platform guidelines. And it is to Kathy and John for review so that we can adopt it hopefully within this quarter's time. They're working on personnel policies right now, so as soon as they get through that and that gets adopted, this will be the next thing I think on Kathy's policy plate to move forward with council. So you hopefully will see that in the next quarter sometime coming to you for adoption. And then I just want to note that I switched the platforms I've been using to do some of our advertising within the last couple months. We've been working almost exclusively in a very, very old version of Microsoft Publisher. It's very unwieldy. It can't do a lot graphically with it. We have a subscription now to Adobe Illustrator, so we've been doing a lot of like nicer quality ads, which we ran the 4th of July ad in the Spotlight and the Chronicle. We're running Citizens Day in the Park in the upcoming week in the Chronicle and the Spotlight. So sleeker, nicer, you can do more with it. And summer reading is going on at the library. They have a lot of great events that they've done already. This is a picture from Spy School, which was very, very well attended, and just got done with a stuffed animal sleepover, which was also well attended. If you haven't seen pictures of that, you can go on our Facebook page and look at those. And then finally, I launched thank you, Kathy, a new social media campaign for this new fiscal year that you should be seeing on our Facebook page called Fact Friday. And the goal of it is, there's kind of several goals, but it's an easy way for me to provide guaranteed content on our page in either lag time or when I'm scheduling out what we're posting. So it's just a guaranteed way for us to keep our metrics up and keep posting each week through social media. It provides a fun and incentive way for people to interact with our page, which again, Facebook, the way that you show up in people's feeds, it's driven by how often or frequently they are clicking or commenting or liking on your posts. You're more likely to show up in their feed in the future if they are continuing to interact with you and engage with you. So this provides an incentive for them to do so. So each week we take a department, and I'm rotating through all of our departments. So 1 week will be Public Works, 1 week Facebook, Police Department, 1 week Library, 1 week City Hall or Administration. And we feature a fact about one of our services with a piece of information missing and ask people to comment with what they think the answer is. And we give a $10 gift certificate to a local business if they get the answer right or come closest to the correct answer. So far we've featured the police and the library, and we used services that are current and relevant to what is happening right now with those departments to also let people know of news that's happening in the city. So we promoted the summer reading program at the library and encouraged people to volunteer or sign up for it if they didn't know about it when they were guessing. And interestingly enough, most people far underguessed the number of signups that we had for summer reading, which is what we asked them to guess. So we had a lot of like 20s to 50s as people guessing, and we actually had 600 people, I think, registered by that time. So it's also a great way to highlight services that people think that we're not underproviding, but that, only so many people are, utilizing or engaging in this city service. It provides a great way to educate people about, no, actually, we have a ton of people that use these services, or no, actually, so upcoming this week, it will be about our street system. So it will allow us then, I will include information about, hey, are you curious about how to report a pothole? This is how you do it. Are you interested in seeing when your street is scheduled to be swept? Go here. So it allows us to promote our services as well. And it obviously ties in, again, with promoting a local business each week so that we give people a $10 gift certificate and say, hey, check out this local business. And then on the horizon, so through Rick, we are working with a local film producer and some PSU students who are volunteering their time to put together a promotional video for St. Helens. I think a couple of promotional videos, actually. And they were out here over 4th of July, I believe, with a drone to film a couple of different locations and are working to put that together which should show a young couple coming to St. Helens and just their activities throughout the day and visiting the town as a promotional piece. So hopefully we'll see the final product or a draft of that product within the next month or two. I know the producer has been in and out of the state lately, so he's trying to coordinate that from afar. But it is happening. It's proceeding. We're working with them. We have Citizens Day in the Park coming up on Saturday, August 12th. So please spread the word. I hope everybody plans on showing up to that. And then we still have a bunch of summer reading programs that are coming up within the next few weeks. We've had a lot of kids ones that have been happening recently, but there are several adult programs that are coming up in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I think we have like a Insects That Bug You program for adults, and
August 1st, there's one on furry freeloaders and eliminating varmints from your yard. So.
And then we also have a Oregon Humanities Conversation Project coming up.
That is about immigration.
So we'll have a press release out soon on that, as Nicole got me information today for that. And then for Spirit of Halloween Town Planning, Terry has organized an emergency management meeting between all the agencies that will be happening next Thursday, I believe, that I will be at. I think Tina is at that, and John will be there. Yeah. So we'll be attending that next week. And Susan and I are meeting with Amanda from Shedco next Thursday as well to talk about communications collaboration and Shedco stepping up to potentially assist with or take over the Scarecrow competition piece of Halloween Town. That's all I have. Are there any questions? I said I think, but I don't know for sure. It's next week. Wednesday.
It didn't sound right.
Okay. 10 o'clock, I think, here. Yeah.
Good job, Crystal. An excellent photo of that firework. I absolutely, I know you said you had some better ones, but I love that red, white, and the blue. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you to Roger for driving me around 50 different places to see where I wanted to be.
I just want to comment. Crystal comes before us 4 times a year. She has done a phenomenal job with communication since she's been here. It's gotten to just where it's so good right now. Yeah. And she does such a good job of representing the city. I just really think that we have such a great asset in Crystal that I don't want to ever think she's not appreciated, because she's very much appreciated.
Yep.
Thank you.
And she's got a long list of FEMA and all kinds of stuff.
I
on
do.
her wall.
I call it my Great Wall of Fame.
Yeah.
You do a very
well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal.
You don't get applause, Matt.
But I will tell you, you are sharply dressed, Matt.
At least you're not
We
getting any
do love
tomatoes.
you.
It's true. Hey, I'm not proposing any water rate increases, so it's always a good day for me. Okay, so in your packet you have 2 reports that I'm going to go fairly quickly through, unless there's some huge questions, just to save a little bit of time. First one is your court report. This is for the time ending June 30th. So main thing I want you to focus on the first page is the far right column, which is the fiscal year 2016-17. Just show you that the total cases filed were about almost 1,200, and just to show you kind of the modest increase that we've had over the last 5 or 6 years that are shown here. It's broken down by type of case. You can see in the graph below. Obviously, the highest are traffic violations that the police give out. If you want to jump to page 3, is probably the most important topic to discuss, which is the actual where we ended up in the end of the fiscal year. As far as revenue, on paper it looks very very good. We ended up with about $250,000 in fines. That's opposed to the budget of $209,000. The expenses were pretty much right on track, just about 1,000 or so, a few thousand less. So overall, the budget for 2016-17 was a net loss of about $193,000. We actually ended this year with negative 148. So definitely a drastic improvement, but still some steps that need to be made. A couple things that I do want to note on that $250,000 in revenue was that there was a transfer of $23,000 in revenue from an asset account that we have that is, when I came here, had about $50,000 or so sitting in it. And this account is accumulated over the years from people paying violations from our old court system. A portion of their revenue was derived to go into that account for the courts to assist in substance abuse, any kind of programs or treatment that the judge had the capability to use funds if she wanted to help somebody kind of get through that treatment program, or in the hopes that they would get through the treatment program and then pay the money back. So over the time, we've seen over these last 6 months, we've actually seen kind of a modest increase in that account, mainly because we have a new collections agency that is collecting fines from a long time ago when this fee was assessed. So it's now starting to kind of creep back up because we're digging back into the pot a little bit, so to speak. So over the next 6 months or this next fiscal year, we'll have another discussion with the judge and city prosecutor of how well that account is used, and then there might be another transfer of funds out of that into the actual revenue. So you might see another kind of big bump for that reason. The last page of the report, which for me is kind of the most troubling, although it's not bad news, but is the clearance rate of cases that we're going through. So this basically compares how many cases come in to how many kind of get off the books. You can see at fiscal year 2016-17, we're basically at 100%, meaning that we get one off the books, another one comes on. We're not really making any headway in the old cases that we have kind of outstanding. So that's what we're working on in these next 6 months. With the new city prosecutor that's on board, and our judge as well, definitely have made some process changes over there for the better. So it's kind of a 180 degrees turn, so to speak, for the court department and how we process things. Over the next 6 months is kind of my initial review period that we talked about, going through, doing the changes, seeing if they make a difference. So at the end of December, I'd like to invite our city prosecutor to come up, give a kind of a little report of how he's doing, what things have changed, and kind of the results of that. So you can kind of expect that around December or January time. And then based on those results, we can better assess where the council may want to go. Any questions on the court department? I know we kind of rushed through that, but I know we're behind on time. So.
If you see something awesome happen in the in-between time, by all means, don't wait clear till December.
Absolutely. And actually, our city prosecutor talked about possibly coming in September, kind of that halfway point.
I just thought if they start to see the needle move, you know, it'd be nice to know that changes are made and there's positive effects, or we made changes, it's not affecting it positive, we made more changes, so we just kind of get a little progress report, even if it was just a couple lines.
Status.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I will definitely keep you in the loop.
Full-on presentation, but it could be just a little blip.
I can even mention it during department reports and everything.
Yeah, just a little bit blip through you that this is starting to move the needle.
Absolutely. Will do. Okay. Moving on to the quarterly financial report, which, like the court report, is the end of the fiscal year in June. Not too much to go over here because it's nothing bad. I'll direct you to the second page of the report, which the top graph basically shows that we collected more revenue than we budgeted and we spent less than we adopted. Like myself, I'm sure John Ellis, this was his kind of last year of budgeting for this 2016-17. So like most finance directors, we kind of like to be a little bit soft on revenue expectations and a little bit heavy on expenses because we anticipate a little bit of fluctuation in that. So
So all good news there. The bottom graph on the bottom of the page shows the revenue by category. You'll see a little bit of a jump in fines, which we discussed here in the court report. You'll also see that the miscellaneous is kind of a big jump. That is because that category includes interest from the banks and from the pool account. And what I do at the end of the fiscal year with the auditors is go through by fund and kind of allocate that interest out to the other funds. So that number will go down to a little bit more of that blue line. So the property taxes came in just a little bit under what we expected. That's mainly due to John's budgeting in previous year's tax amounts. We have a current kind of year taxes, and then we have a separate line item for previous years. And he budgeted around $80,000 in previous year taxes. We ended up getting about $25,000 or $30,000. So definitely a lot less in there. That's why that category looks a little more down than it should be. Department-wise is the next few pages here. Nothing too big to announce. Everybody was under 100%. The Parks Department wins the award for being the closest without going over. So the library has been knocked off of its track. So most of them are right in that 90% range or close to 100. The building department was at 64%, so obviously a little bit less than what was anticipated for expenses there. On the next few pages are the specific fund departments. One we should probably talk about is just briefly is the Visitor and Tourism Fund. As John mentioned, there's obviously the revenue from Halloween Town and all the events that we accumulate. So that revenue, according to what was adopted, actually came in a little bit higher than expected. And then our expenses were a little bit lower. The main reason our expenses were lower on that front is because we had $100,000 adopted for the wayfinding and branding and wayfinding grant. Part of that was spent, and then the other portion is in this fiscal year, so it kind of rolls over. Nothing else much to really waste any kind of time over. Like I said, it's no bad news and all good news. On the very last page is a new graph that I started on the last report was SDC revenue. It's kind of a best educated guess as far as in 2016-17 for what John Ellis budgeted for SDC revenues. So this fiscal year, I'm kind of working on a little bit more of a methodology to be able to track and estimate basically the single-family residence home building in the community. That way you guys can have a better idea of how many new homes are going in and those corresponding revenues with the SDC. So you'll start to see that kind of graph a little bit more as we get into this upcoming fiscal year. Are there any questions on the finance report? Okay.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, discussion making a .5 building inspector to a 1 full-time. So I had tabled this last meeting because there's a lot of dirt being moved around St. Helens, and we had Bob Johnston come up and say that he sometimes fails to meet the 10-day deadline, that that there is a lot of potential building getting ready to happen in St. Helens, and the future looks bright. And I think we should seriously allocate the other $67,000, which was the most it would cost to match that fund of the .5 and shop around for a building inspector. How do you guys feel about it? I know it was a pretty hot topic. Me and Sue kind of.
I want to hear from Matt the money.
Right.
So Rick is right on the $60,000-$70,000 to bump somebody up to full-time. That's mainly because of health benefits that cost the city. Where that money would come from was basically the contingency amount that you have in your general fund, which right now by the adopted budget is $750,000. So you definitely have a little leeway in there. The only thing that I question, and something that I brought up before, is just usually we hire a building inspector in the hopes that we see revenue come in to help pay for that kind of person. I'm not 100% sure that we're there with the revenue as far as expectations in the future. Whether that changes,
I would like to see in that SDD, so that the gentleman was talking about, that 1.3 or 7, whatever it was, that for staffing needs to be bumped up.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely needs to be bumped up because that would pay for
it. It will.
It's not effective right now.
I know.
As development comes, that admin fee that you see in the SDCs, that is also transferred back into the general fund every year. So that money goes back into the general fund. The reimbursement and improvement part stays in the SDC account, but the admin fee is transferred back at the end of the fiscal year. So that's an additional source of revenue on top of the building permit revenue that you could see if development starts to pick up.
Yes.
My primary concern is the budget, but also when I started, every single year, the building official, it's like, is he 0.9, is he 0.8, is he 100%? And I sat there in an office and heard the guy that he left, our employee, because he just couldn't live year to year not knowing if he was full-time anymore. And I guess I caution about being a little more conservative before we make that jump and promise somebody full-time when it's not forever. And that's one more person that's going to be sitting there going, do I have a job next year? Mm-hmm. And I just hesitant.
And I would agree with you. But I don't know anybody, even a corporate CEO answers to a board of directors who feels completely comfortable that they're going to continue to keep their job. Anybody who has that mind frame probably should not be at their job, in my eyes. And if the economy does tank, you know what? It's the economy. It's not us. It's not us personally. That's what happened before. I just feel as though we are stuck, and I feel like, and I understand that the council and everybody had to go this direction with the recession, but I feel like we're still stuck in recession staffing.
Right, but if we were 0.8 when I got elected 5 years ago, and now we're talking about 1.5, we're not in recession staffing.
And we had 3 at the top.
Talking about 2.
Yeah, we're talking about 2.
Right, but when I started, the building official wasn't full-time. And now we're talking about that building official will be full-time, and we're adding a second person.
Because you came right in at the recession,
more than double.
And actually at the height of our market, Jenny, we had 3.
Right, but I just, it's one. It doesn't have to be unanimous. I can have my viewpoint. It doesn't have to.
Oh, I know. I'm just pointing it out though that we did have 3 building inspectors at one time.
Place now? Do we have as much building going on now as we did then?
Yeah, I'm sure Bob could probably speak to how many outstanding building permits or plan review processes that he has kind of outstanding. That may give you a better view
of what we have.
Number again?
I would say you get a few building permits. You've paid for a lot of.
Bob Johnston, building official. We are seeing an upturn, and I understand Jenny's concerns. We all have the same concern of bringing somebody on as a full-time employee, and then things happen, and you have to let somebody go. That's one of the hardest things to do at a management level is let that person go. But the numbers speak for themselves. Now, as far as the increase, we did pick up Columbia City last year. We've improved our IGA with them starting July 1. We're actually collecting more income from them. So we'll see a bit of increase in our income. Good example, 3 years ago, Columbia City was issuing somewhere in the 20 to 25 permit range. This year, they issued over 78. So they've basically tripled the amount of work that they've got. We've got subdivisions coming up in Columbia City. Excuse me. We've got several subdivisions coming up in St. Helens as well. We've got some large projects coming up. Right now, I'm running about 20 days on my plan review time because of the additional larger projects that are coming in. So I'm getting further and further behind. So We do have a halftime guy budgeted right now. I would like to see us start into that recruitment process, because that would take a month and a half to get somebody on board. And at that time, if that individual could expand into a full-time position, if the budgeting is there and the numbers show that we can justify that, I think that's a more cautious approach to filling that pre-budgeted 0.5 FTE right now, and then watch what the economy does and react to that, rather than jumping in to a full-time employee right now.
I would be
think
more
that-
comfortable with that.
I think that's a good suggestion. Pardon me. I think that's a good suggestion, in part because the timelines can be flexible. So in terms of moving that person into a full-time position, we can identify that as we move along and as we see fit. I just think that that's a good, safe approach to go. Get a half-time position and put the carrot there that it could build into a full-time position in time, depending on workload and how many permits will be out there. So I like that suggestion a lot. I don't know, Ginny, if you want to, how you feel about that.
I think the halftime is warranted. I think it's more business friendly. I think it's more development friendly. And I mean, 90 days from now, when the person's trained, we'll be like, we're ready to go. And it's like, then we've moved that process down. You know, get on getting the halftime person immediately and start working forward to that. But I think that we can react pretty quickly if things start rolling out.
And I appreciate the mayor's passion for providing that customer service.
I absolutely, that's my 100%, and I would like to see the administrative looked at, and as soon as we could change that, I would like to change that and bump it up, at least that, at a minimum.
Talking about the
And
administrative fee?
yes,
recommended?
yeah, that was recommended from the gentleman from Steve, and
There was a timeline on that.
and I every once in a while you will find a hidden gem at part-time, every once in a while. But I believe our citizens and our community deserves the best, and you're going to get a better response from a full-time position, and that's just my opinion. Every once in a while you get that hidden gem, but it's not very often.
Well, and the economics of it may be accelerated with the new building official in Scappoose, who is still a one-man shop over there. He's got a 350 unit subdivision that's coming out of the ground right now. That's a large load. We potentially will be helping him. The county is getting buried with their inspections, with their workload. They're going to be calling on us, so we may see that.
There might be IGA.
Yeah, through the IGAs, we may see an accelerated need for that. But I think starting with a part-time, or the 0.5 FTE that we've got budgeted right now, I'd like to see us move forward on that process and then migrate that into a full-time as needed. But I appreciate your fighting for that other half. I do appreciate that very much.
And I didn't know, I've not asked you this off the record, so I apologize for putting you on the spot. I want to make sure that your entire team feels supported. You know, that because there's more to getting new buildings in our community than just you. So I want to make sure if there's anything in your area that doesn't feel supported, that the council's not aware, or there's things that you need that, you know, I want you to feel free to be an advocate, because you hear all of us council wanting to be business friendly, development friendly, housing friendly, and you're like, you know, Heidi needs help, or this needs help, or we need help at the county, or whatever. I want you to feel free to advocate in that regard, to let us know if you need 0.5 of a building inspector, but you need 0.2 of something else, that you need that support in doing that to make your whole operation run more efficient. So I want you to feel that burden or that freedom to do that with the council, that whatever you need to get that goal, because that's pretty unanimous of a goal to the council, is to be friendly to the business and friendly to the future of our community.
Understood.
And Bob, I appreciate you saying that, but it's also about the community and their needs as well. You know, I mean, you have to go out and you have to inspect rain drains to foundations to flashings to on every single project, either remodel or new construction that's out there. One guy, right? Am I right?
Yep.
Okay, so that's why I'm saying this, folks.
And plan review and meetings, pre-app meetings.
Okay, yes.
Fire and life safety review that.
So, Mayor, I'm not totally convinced about your argument. And the reason I'm not convinced is that I'm not quite certain that you're going to get a better person. You'll have to win me over on that argument that you're going to get a better person out there who is full-time rather than someone who comes in as a half-time. I just need to know that.
All right. John Walsh, would you have came to St. Helens for half the pay and half the workforce? You're a workaholic. You're a gem. Would you have, or would you have
actually
bypassed?
started my career as a part-time building person, so.
We didn't want
Did you hear the answer? Rick, did you hear the answer?
I actually started my career as a part-time building person.
Sure. But you went to
It
four cities.
quickly evolved.
You went to 4 cities before that, yes.
Right.
May I respectfully bow out?
The right person.
I want to find somebody who's been an inspector and who has maybe the economy is what reason they want to continue to be challenged. And St. Helens is a little bit bigger city, or maybe it's a little bit smaller city than what they're used to. They're up and coming, or they've already experienced so much and they want to downsize a little bit and be the small town community feel. We're going to either get somebody like that is my argument, Doug. And, you know, John had 4 cities before us.
Oh, I know that.
I see it as just a matter of timing. It's a timing issue and the economics of it. And you know, some years building slows down in the winter, other years it just keeps going right through. And if we bring somebody on, it's a 4 to 6 week process probably ish. You know, you bring them on in October. You know, what are you going to be doing in November? Might be a conversation if you're full time.
So
I think as a city we need to be a little bit conservative because we're not spending our money, we're spending citizens' money. And
Absolutely.
We need to justify what.
So we have the availability for the 0.5. We will look down that, Bob, because we hear you loud and clear. And I want to put this on the next meeting agenda. Table it till then. We'll discuss it then because we're getting way down the scale here.
We can't just move forward.
Well, you were advocating for that process beginning sooner so that we could start looking.
We can't just
for
direct staff to start with
doing
the
the hiring process, right?
Move forward now.
Rick?
Yes.
We'd like to move forward on the hiring process.
Yes.
Yes, and we have the 0.5
So we'll
there.
continue.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
but I want to talk about it again on the next meeting, and I have that ability to put it on the agenda. Yes, please. I'm a bulldog.
Keep picking.
Yeah.
Chasing the fence.
Okay, Matt, tell us about this sweetened beverage. You got so many people going crazy out there.
Ruffling a few feathers. We have a couple visitors today. Okay. So I'll just need you to click on the, first I'm going to hand out these. You can kind of pass them all the way around. There are some extra ones, so if anybody from the crowd would like a copy of it.
Cut down a tree for that one.
Yeah, I debated whether it's just a lot of information. So what I'm also going to do is hand out a frequently asked questions. This is something I presented to the other boards that looked at, as well as gave one to the media as well. So you'll have a copy of this kind of a frequently asked questions for the basics, taken from a number of sources. And then I also want to get started. So we're here today to talk about sugar-sweetened beverage tax. This is to give you a brief history. We talked about this at the Budget Committee meeting back in February as a possible revenue opportunity for a department like the parks and sidewalks and streets as a possible revenue source for the city. So just to give you a brief history on sugary sweetened beverages, you can see on the first page, it's obviously a very well linked product to the poor. It's obviously a very well linked product to children as well. And it's a very well studied fact by now that by increasing the price of a product, you can help reduce the demand for a product. That is essentially the goal of this tax. To give you a brief example or explanation of what a sugar sweetened beverage tax is, it is a city excise tax adopted by the City Council on the distribution of sugar sweetened products within the city of St. Helens. Over on the right side on the red, you could see some of the products that would be included in this excise tax. Those include regular soda, sweetened tea, fruit drinks that are not 100% juice, energy drinks, sport drinks, and any kind of powdered syrup or frozen drink. Things that would not be included would be things like milk, 100% juices, medical beverages, and alcoholic beverages. So we're not taxing your beer. That's already a whole nother separate taxable item. It's also good to note that this tax is not something that is paid by the businesses. This is actually paid by the distributors themselves on what they bring into the city. So a city business or city mom and pop shop will not actually be getting a bill for this tax. It actually goes to their distributors, which they would be required to report to us, or a third-party company that I am suggesting we use for the collections and enforcement portion. Okay? This is obviously kind of a growing phase in the United States. Obviously started with Philadelphia. I'm sure you've all seen the news stories about that. Obviously, most recently adopted in the city of Seattle. I'm going to focus on kind of the California cities because Berkeley in particular is one that they have studied both pre-tax and post-tax on some of the benefits and the outcomes and results. But this is just an example to show you kind of how much some of the cities have elected to put on as an excise tax. So in the city of Berkeley, this is, like I said, one of the cities that were most studied as far as pre-tax and post-tax. And I'm going to have you put on your little economics hat, and I'm going to actually use some of my business degree for a couple times in my life. So the results of the post-tax, if you can imagine what's called a price elasticity. Basically what that means is as the price of a product goes up, the demand of a product goes down. So what economics studies have shown is a price elasticity in soda beverages of a negative 1.21. Now what that generally means is that a 1% increase would lead to a 1.2% decrease in demand. So you can see the graph on the right that shows the amount of Berkeley sodas on the left, and then on the right, the amount of water that increased as a result of the tax. So Kathy, can you play this quick video? This is going to be a quick video about the city of Berkeley and some of the post and pre-tax studies and results. Oh. Go ahead and click.
Blame it on the IT guy.
Nothing ever works as planned. Okay. I will forward you the videos. Unfortunately, they're on YouTube. Let's see. Let's go back. So the question has come up: can we do this as a city? The answer is yes. And I did reach out to our Jordan Ramus office to ensure this. This is their exact quote, was that the City Home Rule Authority generally includes the power to adopt taxes, whereas statute requires all county tax measures to go to the voters. There's no such requirement for the cities. So this is something that can be passed by the 5 of you. However, just for argument's sake, we can't pass an ordinance that goes into effect less than 30 days. So you have to have at least 30 days notice for the tax to go into effect. The recommendation that I am putting toward you today is to have an ordinance and council vote on the August council meeting with an effective date of November 1st, 2017. So we all know that working together as a team is always better than someone individually. I have reached out to the county public health. Once they found out, they came and gave you a short presentation about the benefits of an excise tax such as this. So I am incorporating the county public health as well as a movement for park improvements and sidewalk improvements with this potential revenue. I see the county public health in assisting the city in public outreach, getting to the kids, to the community, to inform them and get better outreach to people making healthier choices.
You reached out to the school district. What was their response?
I did reach out to the school district and present to them. They were not ready to write a letter of recommendation at this time.
You just said that you would like to see a vote of the council on August?
At the August meeting.
I'm going to disagree with that. And the reason I'm going to disagree with it is that I think this deserves a public forum, and I think that people in our community need to weigh in on this. The council, before the council votes, we want to hear from our public. We want to hear both sides of the argument. We want a nice, fair, transparent decision-making process to be in order. And I don't think this is time sensitive, so I don't see any reason for putting it on the August meeting for a vote.
Okay.
Fellow councilman,
How
that's my opinion, and if you want to weigh in on that, I'd appreciate it.
I think it's a good idea. I think maybe the first we'll do a special meeting on the first Wednesday of September. Do a special meeting at 6.
A hearing?
Yep.
Hearing or just
Just a public forum.
Public
forum.
Public forum.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not a problem.
Everybody okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for responding.
I will pass around. For a while there, we kind of skated under the radar of everyone, but due to a couple news articles that I've gotten out, the word has obviously gotten out around the community. I have a few letters of support, one from the Public Health Foundation, one from Oregon State University, as well as a resident that emailed me a letter of support and was willing to share that with council. So I'll pass those around for you to see. You can peruse those at your leisure. Now I want to talk about potential revenue for the city. Depending on how much cents per ounce is enacted will determine obviously how much revenue the city sees. Now if you remember back to my slide, the price elasticity, as we go up in price, the demand goes down. There is a kind of a magic moment there when where the two intersect, where it makes the most sense. That recommendation from the estimates that I've seen would be at that 2 cents per ounce. As you can see, that revenue could yield anywhere from $190,000 up to $300,000 when the excise tax would be fully implemented. That $300,000 estimate comes from the University of Connecticut Rudd Center for Food and Policy and Obesity. They're one of the leading revenue estimators for larger cities, and they did a special revenue calculation just for the city of St. Helens that I got earlier this morning. So they estimate at $300,000. Like all finance directors, I like to be a little bit more hesitant in my expectations, so I put a range in there from 190, which is what I came up with. So as you can see, when you go to 3 cents, it actually goes down a little bit because you're causing the demand to go down so much that you don't make as much money. So the recommendation that I would be throwing to you would be the 2 cents for an excise tax per ounce.
Do you, I noticed that in your figures earlier, Seattle had 1.7.
Correct.
And do you know how they got to 1.7? Did they start at 1.7?
I would have to do a little more research to see what was initially proposed or discussed and then where it actually fell.
It'd be nice
There
to-
were a number of cities that were, you know, in that 1, then 2 cents, and then 1.75, and
maybe they did it based on the impact of the price of the unit.
it could very well be.
Because maybe they decided they want a can of soda to only go up this many cents.
Yep.
And that's the percentage that it linked out to.
Yep. So,
My question is, are we doing this for the money or for the health of our community?
you got to wait till you get farther in the PowerPoint
Well,
presentation.
no, this money determines that.
Correct, but I would argue that any amount of money could make a difference.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yes. But as we see, more money is less sugar intake, right?
that's correct. Yep.
Throwing it out there.
I totally understand. This is a completely open discussion, so I don't have an ordinance in hand or anything saying here you go. So, so the Public Health Foundation and I have kind of talked about splitting the pie a little bit. This was originally going to be split 3 ways with the school district, but without their support letter, I have a hard time giving a recommendation at this moment to give them any use of the funds if they're not willing to support it. So the Public Health Foundation, I would suggest doing an 80-20 split. You can see those estimates on the right based on the $300,000 revenue. The Muni Services is actually a third-party company. They are based out of California. They actually do the collections and enforcement of soda taxes as well as other things that governments do for a number of the cities that you saw on the graph. So they charge a 2% fee on whatever is collected. So that $6,000 is the 2% of the $300,000.
I have a question. Public health is public health, but are there programs that are designed targeted toward children? Because I think I would support giving public health more money if it was children-centered programs.
Correct. And I did not have a very descriptive discussion with public health at this time as far as what that money could be used for. Essentially, in all honesty, it's your use of all the funds, 98% of it. So whatever percentage you decide to give to public health, whatever amount that you negotiate with them to give them, as well as some of the requirements of that money, that could be as well.
You know, like to Keith's point, the impact being to reduce the sugar intake by kids, but to also increase the healthy habits of kids.
Correct.
So do we give public health, if not the school district, give somebody enough money to make an actual impact?
Correct.
So that they're going to have parents of children are going to see a physical benefit in their kids. They're going to see an education benefit in their kids, and in turn see a positive impact in our community.
Absolutely.
And the youth question is addressed in one of your letters of support, which is operating under the assumption that we're splitting it with the St. Helens School District. But they say in the last line, our city needs to invest in our youth.
Right, and that's why I would want any funding in this, you know, anything to be funding our future.
Well,
and
that's
You council are the earmarkers for this money. You can set up a specific
so more
committee
information from
to
the other cities that did it.
Okay.
Would be cool. I think
Absolutely.
that would help us before that September meeting.
And that's been more so than any other cities have been more than willing to show what they have done and everything. I just didn't provide that information right now because I thought it was a little bit too soon.
There's a lot of grants out there that target young people development and lifting people out of health situations like this. And it's like, I could see this could be a catalyst as matching money for programs that maybe don't have any money to put with a grant, so they've never applied for a grant. But if they had this funding stream, then they have a grant to go after, it could really be impactful.
Yep.
And you haven't sold me, so you're going to have to give me lots more information.
So I think that fill-in information about how their other communities have got to their percentage and what they did with their money.
Yep. I can absolutely return with some more information for you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to recommend is maybe, unless you want to continue on this presentation, is maybe we're going to have this special hearing coming up anyhow, give you a little bit more time to get some more information, add to your presentation. I was hoping maybe not to cut you off, but to jump you ahead to the renovations and cables, because we are unfortunately pressed for time right now.
Okay. I will take 30 seconds then.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. Yep.
So in 2015, you adopted this Parks Master Plan, which, with our recent surveys, you know that our community loves walking and they love the parks.
Yep.
And that's the biggest need on the bottom graph of what they say is most important. Okay?
Well, I have on my council reports that visiting parks where the things that are broken on a play structure are not replaced or repaired, they're cut off.
Correct, and that's
is an issue.
That's part of the next slides is looking at the conditions of our current parks. They're definitely not the greatest.
God, I think I talked about this in the budget meeting.
Yes.
I think I do recall that.
You have a lot of great visions.
Talking about the full-time inspector in about 4 months too, but that's all right.
You have a lot of great visions in that master plan. Unfortunately, that master plan is almost non-funded for the majority of it.
Well,
Some
increase
of
in
it,
SDCs is going to help fund
it
part
will
of
a
that.
little bit, but
fund
it's not.
that helps.
It will not be a short-term resolution. Those SDCs will be monies that you actually save up
right.
and then spend maybe 10 years down the road.
Jenny, could you expand on cut off and not repaired, what you're talking about?
There's some equipment at McCormick. There's parts of that play structure that are no longer there. That the cables where you used to be able to climb a ladder, where you used to be able to climb up the chute and use certain skills that kids use, that they obviously failed and now they're gone.
Yeah, I'll have to check into it, but just for a fact, some of the stuff that used to be there is no longer legal to be.
Oh,
in
I wasn't sure
playground in
why
a
it was
park.
removed, but it just to a your kids coming back to you like, where'd that go? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, 2 of the guys
There's
just
not-
got back from learning
Yeah, there's-
certified in playground equipment.
Yeah,
This doesn't count in my 30 seconds.
Yeah, it
The point is
Well, on the
that
next
we have
topic, so.
parks so then kids can use them, and they're for children. I know that some people think that's play equipment, but for children, those are tools.
Right.
What Neil's
So-
saying is we're going to lose more down the road.
Yeah, potentially. Also, I want to. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just said if it's not new and certified and stuff.
Yeah, I want to remind everybody that SDC funds for parks can only be used to add capacity, and as Steve pointed out earlier, we're far under capacity in some of our park functions, which means SDC funds cannot be used to develop those amenities in those parks. So it can only be used to add capacity to parks as identified in very specific projects from the Parks Master Plan. So
But there
that's
are
not going to
projects
resolve.
in the Parks Master Plan that we haven't addressed yet.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. But we should be addressing our deficiencies to start with before we start developing other things that are, over and above what's required or that we should be having right now.
So just to build briefly on that, you have $2.5 million in capital improvement plans scheduled in the Parks Master Plan. You have $1.5 million in trails, just to give you a frame of reference for how many park improvements. Some of the visions that you have are very grand and they're fantastic, but they're very 0% funded. So I see this as a catalyst to start those discussions, okay?
We asked for creative revenue ideas.
This is creative, and I've definitely had enough backlash already. So, responding to citizens and industry. You will get emails if you have not already. You will get phone calls if you have not already. You will get calls from Coca-Cola. You will get calls from Pepsi. You will get calls from Dr. Pepper. You will get stopped in the grocery store at Safeway, okay? This is a tax that can be very unpopular, and it has to do a lot with some of the negative connotation with some kind of a tax like this, okay? A couple of things that I do want to note that we hear a lot or that I've seen a lot in the press. This excise tax is excessive. It hurts low-income families. It hurts low families because they can't buy Coke or Pepsi. Those are products that you really shouldn't be buying, and we're not saying that you can't buy them. We're just saying that this tax is there to make you think about it. Okay? It's no different than an alcohol tax. It's no different than the tobacco tax that the city receives.
Actually,
in
it
revenue.
is. There is no secondhand effect from someone drinking soda and you're standing next to them. In tobacco, there is.
But there is.
Not true.
If you're standing next to them, you're going to.
No, but it enhances all of our insurance costs.
Mm.
So.
But the secondhand effects is different. Not there.
The other one is that a
Personal.
soda tax is a job killer. Okay? There have been recent studies that there are job losses if this potentially happens. Definitely in Philadelphia, in Atlanta with Pepsi, in Seattle they expect layoffs. One thing to note and look at is although you are looking at those job losses in the industry, also look at the state level of employment. In those cities where these job losses have occurred, state level employment has stayed flat, which means those people that lost their jobs gained their jobs. When you hear this information, all I ask is that you do a little more research on your own to look at that state level improvement, state employment level, to see what those levels are, to see if they've dropped or actually gone the same or gone up. Okay?
I really am interested in hearing more about it because I don't drink sodas, so I am neutral on that piece. I'm interested in hearing about the effects on other community members.
I just
and how
have
they
three
feel.
quick things I want to go over. I know I'm way over. So
my fault, sorry.
One of the arguments that you'll see is that the city is trying to be a nanny. Okay? What I meant by when saying that it was similar to an alcohol tax or a tobacco tax is that we're not stopping people from buying them. All we're hoping is that the increase in the tax price will make them take a second look at other options that are available that may be more healthy and non-taxed. Okay? The sugary tax is really just a grocery tax. I'll pass this out as well. This has to do an independent or a study that has to deal with the employment question and the effects of the soda tax. I meant to hand that out earlier. But if we were able to play one of my videos, they would actually show Berkeley and the pre and post tax, and that grocery sales actually did not decline and they increased. They also showed that over the course of a couple months, people did not go to another city to buy their soda and then drive back. So if I was able to play those videos and have a little more time, I would love to show you those. Those are the basis of my entire presentation. What I'm hearing from council is that likely in August or September, we will schedule a public forum to have some open discussions about it, hear from the public. I may reach out and invite some of the Safeway store managers and Walmarts to give their side. Obviously, the industry lobbyists are sitting in-house, so they would probably like a opportunity to speak as well on the industry's behalf. And then I will be happy to bring any more information to you about how the money was used, how they came to the certain cent of tax, and I'll bring that information back to you on the August or September public forum meeting to give you more information to hopefully you can make a better decision.
I just had some massive leg cramps in my hamstrings. I mean, it was just brutal, so I had to excuse myself. And so when I excused myself, did I miss something about sugary versus the diet drinks or whatever?
Correct.
Can you elaborate on that?
Right now in some of the cities that have actually passed excise tax, diet soda has not been included in that tax. You can write some language in the ordinance to include diet sodas.
Why would you do that if this is more about sugar?
Correct. I don't have a direct answer to you. I can say that has been a discussion, and most cities actually do not tax the diet sodas.
Thanks.
Well, so there'll be plenty of input on this come the first
I'm
Wednesday
sure we will.
of September, folks.
It's my goal to fill this house better than Jacob.
6 o'clock, council chambers.
Okay.
You'll be a star.
So, next discussion is the council room. Obviously, you see a few noticeable changes, the 2 TVs, your mics and everything. A couple of things I want to go over. When we initially talked about starting these changes, we had some discussions on, excuse me, on how to best outreach our meetings to the public. whether that be continuing our Comcast channel or doing a streaming online on our website. From my interpretation of our discussion, I thought our movement was to go toward more of the online streaming and not do the Comcast channel at all. Now, that's why we're having this discussion, because Kathy had a different viewpoint, I had a different viewpoint. The Eric guy in the contract that we wrote up did not say anything about continuing Comcast and doing all that. So that's why we're here to kind of ask your input again. Do you want to continue doing the Comcast channel?
Yes.
Well, wasn't there a price to that, though? I mean,
There was a price,
right.
because of streaming some more wires and doing some more stuff. And my interpretation was that the streaming online would still get to those people,
Yeah.
and actually may get more, because we don't have a real rough guess of how many people actually watch the Comcast.
Can we run what's been streamed on 29 we can't?
No, unfortunately, we cannot.
So that was the reason to go to the web base, because we're going to cover a bigger area and probably less money.
I understand that, but there are people that watch on 29.
Yes.
So we're losing
But
them.
they
They don't
can
necessarily have
probably watch
computers.
it on
If
internet, though. I mean,
not everybody has internet.
No,
Keith.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, not everybody has Comcast either.
That's true. But they're
Yeah.
they're
Now,
kind
what
of
does it
accustomed
cost
to
us?
it.
What does it cost us to run it on channel 29?
It's free. I mean, but we just have to
The
pay for
equipment.
the upkeep of the equipment.
Okay, so how
which
much
was
is the cables?
A rough guess, I would probably have to say probably another couple $1,000 between the screen there and what's in the back, and then getting it to connect. That's just a rough guess. I don't have a quote.
Okay.
So,
so
Quite a bit more.
it could very well be.
say 3-4 grand, but were we good for 4 or 5 years?
Well, you had this equipment for 2010.
And we're
I'm
gonna
sorry.
have
10.
So even if it was 5 grand, we're good for 10 years.
Correct.
So what was your perception, Kathy, of what we had decided? Okay, I did too.
And a lot of it being for those citizens who do watch it on Comcast and who don't participate in
Well,
Yeah.
Why don't we get a real price, and then make a decision?
Well, I lean toward the streaming because we've had so much sound issue. I've never been able to tune into 29 and hear it.
The,
Okay.
but we won't know for sure until it's plugged in and somebody's watching it.
So that was
I
my
think if we're
feeling.
talking $2,000 in equipment, it's well worth it.
Well, please don't quote me on the 2,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're gonna pull
I was
wires
thinking
and
there
stuff.
was some major equipment we had to buy. That was kind of the reason.
Okay, quote.
But I'm.
Let's
We need a
find
quote.
out so we know.
Hearing
Yep.
aids.
I will reach out to the installers to get a quote for that. On a side note, so you guys kind of see the paint samples on the wall. We had talked about painting this room, as well as new carpet and new blinds for updating. The city staff, myself, John, Kathy, we've I brought in about 50 or so, well, not 50, probably about 30 or so, samples of paint, and we kind of played around with what we thought was best and kind of picked what we thought would be our 3 favorites for you. So those 3 are on the wall here. It actually ended up being kind of a light, medium, and darkest kind of range. The staff favorite is on the far right. That is a color called Patience. Which we thought was apropos.
Yeah.
So,
Very
so
Does it work?
we'll find out.
Well, here's my question. It's like, we have higher quality cameras and we're gonna be 29 and then streaming. It's like, what looks the best, not with people's faces in front of it.
The biggest thing I think is to get rid of the white wall, because the white wall behind you really washes you out, and especially John, because he wears taupe and he's got gray hair. And it just
He blends.
he looks like a ghost.
But did you guys consider actual colors besides beige?
We did, and that actually kind of goes into the conversation of carpet.
Do we all need a different color?
I'm ready to vote on the wall.
All right, let's vote on it. What color do you want to go with?
I like the one in the middle, the darker.
Pain and suffering.
Huh?
Yes.
Casablanca.
Casablanca.
The second one is softer tan, and the third one is patience.
I like softer tan.
Middle.
The middle's the darkest.
Yeah.
Yes.
The middle is probably the best.
It's going to provide more contrast.
I think,
So
and we have to see the
Yeah,
see
before
the
we started
carpet.
this project, there was
See
the
the
thought.
carpet.
Follow the road.
The thought was that it wouldn't be all the same. There would be an accent color behind us that was perhaps a little darker to offer some more contrast, and the rest of the building might be lighter. But
Yeah. I'm going to borrow your mic. No offense. So these are the carpet samples at a certain grade, or 28 square grade or something, whatever the carpet terminology is. I apologize. But these two rows are basically a similar grade to what the flooring company has used over in the county as well as the sheriff's office. So
these two.
Which two rows?
It's very durable. The staff favorite that we would like approval on, but if you don't decide to do this,
Blue?
it's possible, is this kind of bluish, tannish, grayish color. The main purpose of that was that I'm also going to be asking you that we spend about $2,500 and get new chairs.
Does that, do they have to be blue?
No, the chairs will likely be black.
Black,
Or
yes,
anything kind of
absolutely.
that goes around with anything. So the staff choice was the patient's color with this carpet.
Lighter walls, darker carpet.
Exactly, and then the thought process was that the kind of tan or brown would pick up the wood finishes on the carpet, as well as the gray would pick up the gray on the basalt outside on the walls.
And your suit jacket.
And my suit jacket as well.
And, okay, the question I always ask.
That's cadet
Is
blue.
this a local carpet representative?
This is what they're proposing, maybe.
Okay, just
up
check.
there at the corner.
Slate
So,
brown.
yes, we stayed
Making sure
local.
we're not hot.
We stayed local.
That'll work.
That's what they're proposing.
Is the one up above it, look, I don't.
Now-
Any of them have green in it?
No.
Now,
one
the
doesn't.
carpet
Maybe
quote
dust.
that we received was about $10,000 or so for this entire first floor. One option that we could do if you weren't 100% sure on the carpet, you kind of wanted to see how it looked or so, we could do a smaller sample of maybe just the council area, and to make sure before spending $10,000, we could spend $2 and then another $8. But
But that's twice disruption of this room.
not in this room.
Right, but if you do it part and part, isn't it better just to do it all?
It is, yeah, it is.
And the worst part of the carpet is through that door.
Yes.
You know, the lumpy bumpy is the worst part.
Which color works best with spilled pizza?
Right.
That's why we were hoping the darker one.
Nah, I get it.
I guess if I had a choice, I like this one best.
Which one? That's not bad. I don't mind that one.
I like this one best. I guess I would be in the patience and this one.
Okay.
And then with the idea, like John said, because the thing I think about is as I'm not looking at carpet, I'm looking at our logos, I'm looking at our waterfront, I'm looking at the transportation system plan. The colors that came out of that were greens and blues, not beige. And so I look at when we're going to put a slideshow up here that's going to show the waterfront, do we need to have beige around that? Or should we have something that expands that and makes that look bigger? So when people looking at home, it looks like a nice, pretty matted frame of our waterfront as opposed to just a beige around it. Because I think, because once it's all painted, the beige will look just like white. It'll be
I
just
think
a different shade
Ginny
of white.
and Sue and Susan should
Fight
form
it
a council
Form a
committee.
council committee for the decision.
And then you guys just make up your mind what you
Well,
want to
maybe
do.
if
make
maybe
That works
if
for
you
me.
Take the two
to us and
finalists,
we're-
if you take the
we'll
two
go with it.
finalist carpet and the things, Susan and I they can get something bigger than this,
Mhm.
that we can look at.
So the reason we're pressing is because they want to get in here and get this portion of it done too.
Yeah, there's the carpet
Because we have a
portion.
month break.
We and we have the money in the facilities budget to buy new chairs. I wanted to double check with you that you're okay that we buy similar chairs to what we have, but they'll just be newer and
Well, I was
black.
the one that told you that sitting over there until midnight was
So-
in those.
And we did actually purchase new chairs for staff over there.
Sitting over there until midnight in those kind of chairs.
As well. So the other thing that we'll be looking at is kind of redoing these ceiling tiles so that they all match and conform a little bit more. So there are some small improvements, but we at least wanted to get your feedback on the carpet and the paint. 'Cause
Yep.
I didn't want to paint
Well, you
the
gotta-
walls and then have you go in.
Yeah, I think
Ah,
if you paint
so-
the whole room, if you paint the rest of the room, like John says, a lighter color, and then with the idea of the offset walls being a different color.
Okay.
Be great.
So you've all had a chance to look at that. How do you feel about the colors of carpets? Jenny had
I'm
mentioned.
okay with the one that Ginny pointed out.
Yep.
I don't like the blue.
Okay. That's fine. I don't get to make the decision, so you just tell me what to put in. I'll put it in. So.
Well, when I
And
put
then-
up carpet and blinds 4 years ago. I
Which
got
one makes them
shouted
stay in
down.
their office the most?
Yeah.
And then we.
For the pizza.
I agree with Susan and Jenny.
Okay.
Okay.
So you got
That's
you got
3
that.
out of 5.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
That's good for me.
Okay.
Right.
So then, what about the paint colors? The with patience, is that what we decided on, or I'm not sure.
The middle one.
Which one's the middle
The
one?
middle is the softer tan. That's the darkest one.
Okay.
Out of the 3.
What is?
I like patience just because it I know that
I
it's
want to
got
hear
the
from
name.
other people that are in this room that look.
It can reflect that, the problem with that, it
You
can
like the
reflect some of the light and get back into
The
whatever.
light color or the dark color?
The light
Doug?
color.
The light color.
What do you think, Susan?
What?
What do you think? Okay, I just thought you've been around and seen this carpet and these walls for a while.
This isn't really a decision that we have to make during our meeting. So
Yes.
I'm happy to pass around. You guys can kind of take the carpet and look at it next to the paint or whatever you want. But that's
Okay,
kind of the direction
super.
that we're heading on. So
Okay, and Matt, have some chairs available for us to look at for next council meeting, and we'll make a decision on that. Color in black, like
you want to order like 2 and then.
I think.
yeah.
I think you can do that.
Well, I had Kathy pick out the chair, so she's to blame on that
Don't
one.
worry about the chair.
Yeah, I think.
Kathy's
you can
picking
do
up.
the chair.
Okay.
Okay, just do it.
You can do the chair.
Just do
do
it.
it.
Just do it.
All right, I'm gonna go sit down.
All right. Okay. So now we're gonna head to department reports.
I move that we take the council reports, and I'm not certain about department reports.
Yeah, I want to hear from the department because it's been a
Okay.
month. Yep. I know where you're going with that, but we're at the department reports. Neil, you got something for us?
The only thing I got is Crystal mentioned about Holly Habe and how much she does. I would like to see the council recognize her with a plaque or something. She puts in a ton of time, and she did it for years and years and years. And I think that the
She's a
council
huge
should
asset.
actually
Yeah.
recognize that.
Yep.
That's all I got.
Okay, Sue.
Can I ask a quick question? I want to go back to the very, very beginning of the council meeting.
Yes.
Regarding the fee in lieu of the improvements for Mr.
Wygant,
Wygant
yep.
on North First Street for the bicycle ramp. So I did recalculate the amount of the fee in lieu of, and by our municipal code, when you charge a fee in lieu of, it requires that you charge a minimum of 125% of the calculated estimate. So the estimate came out to be a little under $1,700. The 25% markup is a little over $400, bringing it to just right over $2,100. So the question is, even though the fee in lieu of technically requires the additional 25% markup because of the way the ordinance is written, in this particular case, he was not, he was totally willing to build the improvement, and he was all prepared for that. He had designed for that. Everything was ready to install that, and then he was asked not to do that improvement. So would the council consider waiving the 25% markup, or do you feel that it is appropriate to still assess that on top of the estimate?
Because of your because of your argument and because of your reasons, I would motion to the council to waive that 25% markup.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay.
It's $400, right?
Yeah, so just a little
Well,
over
and
400.
It's our change, not his.
We're
Part-
going against municipal
Yeah.
code, and I think we need probably a vote on this, I would think.
So can I ask a question first?
Sure.
Absolutely.
That's not the numbers that we originally looked at, though, correct? What,
No, I recalculated it, but I still include some for grading because even though he has accomplished some grading out there, there would still be additional grading to do.
oh, so
And
you
I
did
also
discount some grading then?
I did,
Okay.
and I also reduced some staff hours that would take to put down the bicycle markings on that. So I did reduce the original amount that he was shown.
What was
So
the
it is
original
reduced
amount he
from
was
that.
shown? Just curious.
The original amount was about I think it was 400. It would have been about $400 more than what this is
Like
now.
2,600 or something, wasn't it?
It was with the markup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if we
So
went
it's-
$2,000?
Or
Is that
25
Can we do that, or is that not legit? $2,000 even.
Well,
yeah.
there's a motion on the table, and I didn't hear a second, and I don't know if we're going to second, but there is a second. Now's the time to discuss that, and so the 25% minus the 25% would be what?
$1,690.
So he was quoted 26, so it's open for discussion now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so he was quoted 26 originally.
It was, I think, a little bit less than that. I can
24.
figure that out here
Yeah.
really quickly.
And with three numbers, we've already knocked off about 400. And if we took off 100, we're not breaking our codes too much severely that we're showing favoritism to.
Yeah,
Um,
it was right around $2,600.
But
So-
we have to have a thought process behind the
That's
changes we're making.
Well,
Not breaking our codes too much.
no, but it goes to side. Yeah, I know. I don't know. I'm just trying to.
I mean, it seemed like Sue, the way she presented it, made sense.
Totally.
And it's straightforward, it's, all the boxes are checked, all the lines are checked, and it's fair, and it's something that can be repeatable 5 years from now by a different team for a different developer.
Yeah,
It would make sense, cause it sets precedent, if we make changes willy-nilly, that it's like she had a thought process, and she can document all that, and then we know why she did what she did. So I just am thinking about
Yeah,
stuff that happens at planning commission,
Thank
that
you.
10 years from now,
Yeah.
oh my God, who was the planner, you know,
Right.
what they do. And so it's like, we need to have a consistent methodology that makes sense
Yeah.
for those that come after.
So thank you, because I think waiving the 25% just means that we're waiving that 25% that was imposed that was imposed on him for that. And
Clear.
The reasoning doesn't fit because it changed midstream. And I think that this.
That-
The excavation,
Right.
where we waive the 25%, not some other arbitrary number that we pull out of thin air.
Well, she's already done both, though. She's doing both on that. Yes,
Well,
both.
Yeah.
Oh, she did both, yeah.
So that's why I know a ramp and asphalt and everything else in excavation. It's going to be $1,700 wouldn't cover that.
Actually, yes.
It would?
Yes, because
With asphalt or gravel?
yes,
and-
I have not changed any of the gravel or asphalt or any of the finished. It was what I did was reduce
Just the-
the time that was estimated to do the grading because the vast majority of the grading was already done. He had already gotten in there and done that. So there's still some time in here for grading, but not as much as what the original estimate was because I still feel that this needs to be a legitimate reflection. I'm not asking for any favors for
Sure.
Mr. Wygant. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
look
yeah.
at this from a fairness aspect.
And that's what I'm trying to do here too, as well, because we know that the real bike path, in my eyes, should be actually coming in front of his place and should have a railing and asphalt going down. My eyes.
He's still installing a fence
I-
along the portion.
I
of
think
his
the real
property.
driver in this 25% discussion is who's the applicant. And, we've requested that he not do it. If
That's the issue.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
the
really,
issue.
That's really the issue.
And
He's
got
not saying I don't want to do it, and then here's some money instead, and then we charge.
We're
25%
charging him for
surcharge
our
on it,
request.
saying, please stop. We don't want you to do this. Let's take the money.
But we're going to take 25% more. Yes.
Okay, that's.
That's the, yes.
All right.
Thank you, John.
So,
There's a motion.
yep, motion's been made and seconded to take into consideration the time already spent and then waive the 25% fee. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. There you go.
Thank you for that clarification. And I don't have anything else to
All
add.
right.
Thank you.
Margaret?
I think a lot of what's going on at the library got covered by Crystal. It's been extraordinarily busy. There are lots of families taking advantage of the summer reading challenge, as well as adults taking advantage of the adult programs as well. Earlier this week, we had a program that Gretchen created where families came about 6 o'clock for a family story time, and the young participants brought their stuffed animals to stay at the library overnight for a sleepover. And it was really quite cute. We weren't sure they were going to relinquish their stuffed animals, but they did. We put tags on all of them. And they tucked them in and left the library, and Gretchen and Crystal took pictures of the stuffed animals having a story time and checking out books and waiting for the pizza delivery guy to come. And she made a whole scrapbook of the stuffed animals, and then the kids came back in the morning and picked up their animals and got a scrapbook of what happened during the night with their stuffed animals. And it was really quite charming. We even had one child come and bring her stuffed animals. She said she couldn't come, but she wanted her stuffed animal to participate. So anyway, it was very, very popular, and it's just another one of those things that connects small children to the library. So I credit her with creating an innovative program that was fun for families. But just keep an eye on our events calendar. There's always something going on.
Thanks, Margaret.
My time again, right? I'll be quick. So I spoke with Neil earlier. We have about 300 or so meters to install to be all ERT compliant. Well, not compliant, but to have them all installed. So I just want to let the council know that we're still working toward monthly billing. I anticipate those discussions with the Public Works and Utility Billing Department to start around the September-October timeframe, with an implementation of monthly billing likely in January. So I want to just throw out that timeline just so you're aware that we are still working on that, and it's coming up.
Thanks, Matt. Kathy?
Yeah, tonight there's several things that are being added to the agenda, and one thing that's being taken away. One of the things being added is the Public Works is buying a mower for the Parks Department. So that's being added. A contract payment is being added so that it can get paid out of this 2016-17 budget before Matt closes it. And then, did I miss anything, Sue?
Okay.
Oh, and then the contract for, there's a resolution in there to adopt the collective bargaining agreement for the police association, but the agreement didn't get finalized for us until today, so that'll be included in the packet.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. And John?
Okay, I got a couple of things here.
No.
Carpet discussion kind of gave me flashbacks of a community branding seminar I went to and talking about the pitfalls of designing by committee. More diluted product.
I'm sorry.
A lot of consternation along the way. And there's that same design by committee has overlaps with the Halloween town, the events and the planning, and bringing everybody into it. And so working with PEC and Tina Curry's been really good to help coordinate that. And I wish some of the people that were here earlier, or were here now, but the the amount of effort that goes into coordinating all that and, you know, keeping it fair and equitable and trying to have good outcomes is you know, it's a pretty daunting effort. And to have this level of foundation in the event and this kind of improv theater with people coming to you last minute wanting to do things and wanting to fold those in and respond to the business community and do things, it's been, we've been very responsive to try to do anything that makes sense.
Yep.
And, I think some of the characterizations that we're not being responsive to the businesses weren't quite on target there. Last week, I had a city manager conference over in Bend. Good conference, had a record attendance, 160 managers there. The major themes, one whole day was spent on equity and equality. And if you read your League of Oregon Cities bulletin this month, it has about community engagement. And you know, we've already set great strides with our award and recognition for good governance centered around community engagement and getting people involved. And it was, we're ahead of our time there a little bit, I guess. But, Mike Chapman was here from Wanna Credit Union. Wanna has, I have to say Wanna Credit Union for our sponsorship agreement. That's the language that we specifically have. We've accepted an offer to sponsor a stage in Columbia View Park. We set out, we did a effort with that process trying to get a stage going. The PSU students came along and we actually we had a council approved agreement with Walker Macy to do a design for a stage, but we stopped that last fall to let this Portland State University student-led effort kind of play out to see what they came up with in their process, and they you know, we came out pretty well. Generally a stage located a couple different variety and types behind the existing. So I would like to re-engage with Walker Macy to, and I've already initially done this, to redefine the scope and move forward with that process, but really have some target dates in mind of moving the gazebo and getting some temporary platform type stage down there in the vicinity of where it is now. Timing being upon the conclusion of 13 nights. So sometimes after Labor Day, we'll try and find a home for the stage, put it somewhere with public works assistance or otherwise, and move that along. And hopefully Walker Macy will be looking at some different renderings and possibilities by then, and have the platform to do the performances that meet the needs. The tent worked okay. We've been advertising it. We put the Wanna Credit Union thing up, and we've given them some sponsorships through 13 nights, and their flags are up in front of the gazebo. But they're wanting their outcome, and try to fulfill that.
Is the stage a permanent stage or a portable stage that you're talking about?
The preliminary would just be a pad of gravel, and then we put this either portable decking on top of it, more than likely. The stuff we already have.
Yeah.
Maybe get a little bit more of that.
Okay.
So the other piece to that would be if we're going to plan on doing that for Halloween Town is what you're talking about, right?
Right, yeah.
And Christmas, so we need to start addressing that soil down there so that it's not a soup hole. I mean, did we get the top dresser for the parks?
Yeah.
So we need to start putting sand in that park, otherwise.
Which park are you talking about?
Columbia View Park.
Oh, Columbia View.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that thing just becomes a wet hole in the winter, so.
Yeah, we could do the same thing that we did out here with that. That really helped us out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sorry, I haven't talked about this. But Mike Chapman being here kind of facilitated that and or inspired me to talk about that, and the other conversations with Tina and having that need for event space. I mean, having it over on the veneer property was okay. Wasn't best. It was okay. But it would work if we needed it to. Kathy mentioned we're trying to wrap up the personnel policies. That's something that's been in the works since 2006. It's working on CIS models, working with our attorneys, working on the evolutions and the changes that come along over the years, in the past 10, 11 years. That'll go through a thorough vetting process with all the labor groups and non-rep staff as well. But it's essentially what we have now plus the legally required recommendations from our council. 6 p.m. tonight, we have urban renewal. I didn't want to forget that. And maybe lastly, our presentation by Stephen Donovan today. I've been doing this a while and been through a number of these fees and SDC updates, and that was a fantastic presentation.
was,
His level of detail.
Very
and effort is-
informative.
I've never seen that commitment and really involvement and really understanding the projects, and so it was, and his bid was very competitive compared to the others.
Oh, yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, kudos to his effort.
Yes.
It was great.
So if we have a public hearing on service development charges like we have like we did in the past, we want that guy here for the presentation without a doubt.
To answer questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yes. That was going to be my first thing on my list that was going to go last. So we did interviews for the special events coordinator position. We had the staff or the committee had a recommendation to retain Tina Curry or E2C. They were also pretty enamored by another applicant out of California that did a fantastic interview, frankly. And, you know, in our conversations with that, the committee didn't see the thought that departing from the known right now, but whom we have right now would be a pretty big leap to go from somebody to take over Halloween, especially right now.
Halloween Town was
Halloween, right. So the recommendation was to stay with E2C and then perhaps find if we want to test this person on another event, and we could do that.
Okay, and I dissented from that.
And it wasn't unanimous.
It was not unanimous.
No. Oh, and it's the one interviewee just knocked it out of the park. I mean, by far.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable how dynamic this person was and what they had to say that was pertinent to our community and what we envision, I think. But that was just an interview. And sometimes if you base your whole idea of hiring just on an interview without weighing and measuring the things that John just alluded to, I think it's a risk. So that's kind of where I just wanted to clarify that about how that person was so effective in the interview process.
Also, her references came back very well. I understand that they were very, very positive references. And I, for one, would like to see us maybe split up the events and give her an opportunity to do 1 or 2 events. And
So are we extending the contract for a
That's-
year or just, so just,
It's been kind of a month to month.
just kind of continue that then?
She's been working, well, she had a proposal and a price. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but how are we gonna, if we have this other person, how are we gonna filter them in? I mean, what's the plan?
perhaps let her be in charge of 1 or 2 events. Separate the events out. Leave Tina with Halloween Town.
Yeah, Halloween is by far the most
Yeah.
complex. I mean, even
Her skills, to me, I think would lend to her Christmas. Anybody could do. She could do Christmas, but I think she could also do 13 nights. Maybe.
yeah, Christmas is pretty. We've created it to a point where it's pretty automatic. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody knows pretty well what to do. It's kind of a no-brainer, and having somebody else do it is.
But I don't see how we could.
What
I don't
value we
think.
get out of that exactly, but
Well,
I think
if you're
if we're
done
gonna-
events, any events are a no-brainer. It's just, but they could be different, and
Right.
you never know what you're going to get. I mean, yeah, but it may be a good different or a bad different. You don't know.
Right. I'd like an opportunity to find out. But I understand not wanting to take a risk with Halloween Town as well. I mean, Tina's got that in hand, and it's going fine.
Yeah, the difference
What?
with Halloween is that, I mean, we're essentially organizing and operating a small theme park for an entire
Yeah,
month.
yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
not a one-off, a volunteer kind of.
Halloween Town is, I mean, it's too close to change
Right.
right now. If it was 6 months or 9 months out, it'd be a different situation, but it's too close to change right now, yes, so.
I agree.
But that's why, are we just gonna keep Tina on as needed, or?
Let's do a
I
quarterly.
mean, she had a 2-year contract, right?
She proposed a 2-year contract. She proposed what she proposed was through the end of 2017 and then January 1st, 2018 renegotiate. But she would like a 2-year deal.
I guess
But that's negotiable too.
I mean, I appreciate the committee's interview process, but I'm a person that goes with what I know and fixes what's broken as opposed to just throwing it away and starting over. The community came forward and spoke out pretty strongly about communication with the events person, and they spoke out pretty strongly about a buy local preference. And it's like, it doesn't matter whether it's the new person, the old person, or Ronald McDonald.
I wish
we
you
don't
had-
address those two issues, it doesn't matter who's in that job.
I wish you had been at the interview.
Those are the
because-
two things that no matter who does it, we have to address that because, you know, we filled this room. I hear it online. I hear it in the community about the shop local and about communication with our community. And I think freeing up Crystal for more and having that person that's here all the time is going to help that transition a lot better. And I
And-
think we need to address that no matter who's doing the job.
And had you been there, I think you also would have been blown away with her communication skills and the
Well,
things that she talked
I've-
about in
I've-
regard to the community.
I know, but I've watched person after person come in here as an outsider, and this town is not friendly to outsiders. They don't take it well, and so if it's not a local person, I think we just need that connection with staff because I watched it with Amber, I watched it with Chris Finks, it happened with Amber's predecessor. So it's not a Tina issue, it's a outsider doing events. So we need to figure out what that problem is and fix that.
So what would be the harm, since we have done the interviews, since we put out the RFP, we got responses, did the interviews with giving her one event to see what she can do with it? Maybe she can improve it.
There's no harm in that.
What do you think, Rick?
You know what, I think this could be a long discussion. I think we should put it on next agenda. It's not pressing, right?
Stringing her along for.
Yeah.
No,
I
I,
like staff's recommendation.
I think
Why,
if it's okay with Tina, that she has that if she wants a break in her event, we could give that to her in this contract, in this 2-year contract. If she wants an option to opt out of the Christmas event, then fine, we have something that could be covered. But I think that's Tina's call.
I'd like to negotiate.
I've had that conversation.
I'd like to negotiate price as far as Tina's contract too, because there is a huge disparity there. And Tina's talking about hiring an assistant with part of that. I'd like to see that more defined if that's what's going to happen, because then,
so if you want to know my real opinion, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Is what I honestly think, and I think it's right in the middle of the road. It looks like she's right on track. We looked at the margin, the median for people like her, and she fell right in there, actually a little bit lower.
and I know she works her butt off.
And
Acknowledge that.
so that's my opinion, and I spoke that.
It is
right
your
on.
opinion, and I know you always talk about talking to the community and whatnot.
Yep.
I get all the community on this because I've been involved in the events for the last dozen years, and there's a lot of discussion going on out there. A lot of people aren't happy. There's my 2 cents.
They were, yes, I know, Keith, you got blasted too when you were in charge of it.
I did, yep.
Yes, they were unhappy with you.
Yep.
They were unhappy with Richard, or Dennis, and like Jenny said, it just.
Dennis?
Whoever stands out
Amanda
front
Dennis
is gonna
or
get
whatever her
hit.
name is.
Oh.
Yeah. Whatever her name is.
Dawn,
Amber.
was the
Amber
contract
Dennis.
160,000, or the RFP, the bid, 160,000 per the 2-year that she was?
No, it's 120 through
It's
2017, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's for 1 year, right?
Then
120 for 1 year.
yeah. We wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't
Yeah,
for her
yes,
level of
right.
effort, but what she's done over the last couple of years.
So, I think Rick said that we would finish this up. Are we gonna keep chewing this?
mean, so
John, in your way of thinking, can we negotiate with Tina and bring that 120 down to more like 100 or 90?
I would think that there'd be some room to negotiate, particularly if you want to look at carving off one of the events.
Okay.
If you want me to, if the recommendation is
I'd
to
give you that. I'd like to make a recommendation that we retain Tina for her contract with the ability for our community development director to negotiate prices and events.
I think this is a huge decision that we really should not go lightly on. Like you said, Susan, if a person has to hire help and she's willing to do that out of that money, I know 13 nights takes a lot of people to run that. I'm sure Halloween Town, and Keith, you know what 13 nights takes, and I think it's grown into a little bit more than what it used to be, or close to, similar, the same. It takes a lot to get your sponsors and stuff.
My hope is that someday that we aren't in the event coordination business.
Well, that's a whole nother discussion.
We are now.
It's already 10 to 5, and we have to be back at 6.
Yeah, we're actually. I just called and ordered pizza. You guys are welcome to stay. No, I'm just joking.
No.
So I would invite the mayor. I would think that would be good. My recommendation is that you and I do that negotiation. So.
Sure.
Okay. Being that you're over that department.
Yep. Okay, we will. So what we're saying is we're going to agree to it, but we're going to negotiate a little bit, right? Okay. All right. So we got
What
that.
about the Christmas?
What about the Christmas?
Is Daphne going to be given an opportunity to prove herself?
You know what? We just did this with 4th of July, and Keith said as well. Thank you, Tina, for stepping up, because we didn't do a lot of that, and she did, and helped us out.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
not worth doing a trial of somebody
I
new
don't know.
in a
Just-
safe environment.
Are you willing to take the responsibility? Because I know me and Keith were in over our heads. I know I was.
For Christmas?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Daphne would be taking the responsibility.
Yes. But if that
If
didn't
she's
work
willing.
out, if that didn't work out, and we need a price on it too, right?
Well, I've worked on Christmas before, not lately.
If
I don't either, but
What Rick is saying is, Rick and Keith says, "Oh, we'll do 4th of July," and then they clearly
Yes.
didn't.
Yes.
And then they had to have Tina do it. So if we're committing this other person,
And
like
taking
we
it out
all
of
think
Tina's
is happening,
contract.
we
we'll do the
don't know.
follow-up to
But
make
we
sure it
don't
happens.
know without approaching her whether she'd even be willing to do that.
So
That's
So,
what
but
I'm
we
asking.
have to negotiate with a person, and we have to make a decision on this. So that's where we're stuck. That's where we're at right now.
well, I can
Indecisive.
call Ms. Plump and
Ask if she'd be
just
willing.
see her level of interest too, and what we're proposing to
Great.
do an event and see what that looks like and what the
Sounds
cost might
good.
be. So.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna. Is it okay if we skip counselor reports? I do have one question for Matt, and it's on. No, it's just on water, the water bill and the rentals. I know that the people who own the rentals, when the people stiff them for the rent and don't pay the water, that they're responsible. Has there been a letter sent to every homeowner or rental person that states that they will be liable if their tenant or a signature of something? What I'm getting is I never agreed to that. All of a sudden, this is happening, and it actually happened to a relative of mine. and he's a little baffled.
That is a where the owner signs the application. So the renter will get the application for starting a utility account. On the bottom portion is some legal language as well as a signature from the owner saying that he is allowing him to put the utility bill basically in his name, but that he is ultimately responsible. We've had some pushback in the last couple months from 2 people that I know of that have refused to sign that. So we have.
But what if they haven't signed it? Is it a new? Was it
that? No, this is that application has been in place for many years, as far as I am aware.
So it's not up to the renter. The renter has to come in and get the application and get the water turned on as well.
Correct. The renter can go online and get the application wherever. It ultimately has to have a signature from the owner on the application, because that's his authorization to allow the renter to put the water into his name, and then the legal language that says he is ultimately responsible as the owner.
Are you sure those are legal documents? I mean, that my uncle legally signed that because he can't recall re-signing.
I am sure we have a copy of it that we can send him.
Would it be that hard to maybe I don't know, mail out anybody who owns rentals, mail it to them and just let them know?
We can definitely do that.
I don't think a lot of people know.
That's not a problem, but it is written in, and I mean, it's not size 2 font. It is, regular size font that's in there. But whether they actually read it, that's.
And then on the flip side is all these B&Bs and the people that own just rentals or one should be required to have a business license. In my eyes.
That's something we're going to look at this next fiscal year when we look at the business code licenses and all that kind of stuff for the city code, for municipal code part.
Okay, so that's it. That's all I had. Okay, so now we're going to go into executive session ORS 1926602D, labor negotiations2 1926602E, real property transaction, and ORS 1926662H, potential litigation. Okay, so motion's been made and seconded to go into executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're going to take just a quick break.
You